I had had enough.
Well, you drove out there into the middle of nowhere and had some sort of loud verbal display challenging ET in general out in the middle of nowhere?
That's what I was doing. I actually had a pistol in my hand at the time. I was really ticked off. When I was having this fit, I was waving the gun in the air, okay, and I had this fit. And at this moment, I said, okay.
He was a Louisiana man named Montaldo. Folks around called him Six Gun Joe. Worked with ICAR, don't you know? Investigating UFOs. Out for a drive with a gal one night, they stopped to check out the reporting site. When an alien lit right there on the ground, he commenced to throwing his weight around. Now, old Six Gun didn't take too kindly to that kind of thing, especially without Vaseline or anything like that, you know. Seriously. Well, Six Gun looked that critter right in the eye and said, "Any last wish before you die?" Yo, reached for his gun, quick as a twitch, and said, "Fill your claw, you son of a bitch." Now a legend spread across the land about this pistol-waving man. But if you're from space or from Earth below, you don't give no lip to Six Gun Joe.
Dun, 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 dun. Welcome, everybody. Why am I seeing only half my face? Okay, and I'm not seeing any of my face. Okay, there's my face again. Let's move some stuff around here. How's that? Oh, look at there I am. There I am. There I am. There I am. Can everybody hear me okay? How is everyone tonight? Jay's been abducted by aliens, so we'll talk to him in a few minutes.
No, I'm here. Actually, my computer did something, and all the speaker was off. The screen was turned sideways. I don't know what the hell happened.
What's that? Well, no, sometimes stuff just weirds out. Don't ask me why it does. It just does.
Well, when the government has remote control over your computer, anytime they want, they can change settings, add files, take files, or whatever they'd like to.
That's true too. They just go ahead, have a field day on your computer. It's maybe she might join us later. We should be on Roku. For some reason, it's giving me an error, so I'm gonna check it as we're going. At first, it was giving me an error on UFO Undercover. The home page. Don't ask me why. Ooh, the rain's starting to come down now. If I disappear, guys, it's a Category 2 hurricane, so it's a little nasty outside, and it's gonna be passing by while we're on the air live. Just thought I'd tell you ahead of time. Yeah, it might get a little noisy. Wind starts blowing. Last time I was on the air live was for Zeta. It blew out the damn. I got a backup unit in my office to keep it cooler in here because the big unit with all the computers, and the big unit just wasn't enough. So we put it in a small unit to offset it. It blew the whole damn thing out the window. Man, my son was slammed up against the window trying to hold the AC. I got the board up there with the screws. Zip, 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 zip. It was bad, man. It was crazy, but it's a little bit more secure now. You see, it's still giving us trouble with, I don't know. Facebook is becoming a piece of shit. Oh, excuse my language. I don't usually curse on this show, but it is really becoming a POS. It's saying it's not working. There's no reason why that shouldn't be working. All the other Facebook pages are working. Roku's working. YouTube's working. The only thing we'd be having a problem with is this particular page, and of course, StreamYard, which says that it was set up at a different day or some shit. So we're going to check on that in a few minutes. Well, you know, people, when you do this kind of stuff, sometimes That's right, Kirby. Sometimes things don't always go the way you want them to. Yeah. All right. No, that's true. Sometimes things just don't go the way you want them to. What's funny about this is I'm looking at this page. It says 9/11, which is today, and it says 6/16, which is right now, and it should be coming on. So we're gonna give it another spin here in a minute. As far as UFO Undercover people, if you're trying to listen to us there, I would advise listen to us another page. I will see what's going on with it in a few minutes because it's just aggravating that it's doing it. But I have been hearing stuff. Other people have been having basically the same kind of problems on there. I don't know. It's hard to say why you have these kind of issues. There's never really any way of knowing.
Well, unless they got hacked and didn't know it, which it sounds like there may be a hacking situation there, which is why things are acting funny.
And that's quite possible. Kirby, yes, Jason passed, man. Jason and I were friends for almost 30 years. Joe Renard called me earlier today. I just told him, I said, Joe, I got to go. I'm in the middle of a hurricane thing. He said, look, I got to tell you something right quick. And then, of course, we had to talk. But, yeah, Jason Wilson I've been knowing for a long, long time. He used to be a host in this radio network. He was my Texas State director forever until Joe took over. And he's just a great guy all the way around. He's a pain in the ass, too. Don't get me wrong. That's why we were friends. But he's gonna be sorry. Oh, he pissed like Jeffrey Pritchett. Jay knows Jeffrey Pritchett. Jason and Jeffrey hated each other for a while. They used to fight.
They did not like each other.
Oh no, they used to fight all the time. And then one day I stuck them together on a radio show, and they kind of worked it out. I just told them, I said, look, we're gonna end this shit. You both got a host in the network. Just air it out. Just air it out on the air. Whatever gets said, gets said. I told everybody, we're going to make this a over 21 show in case it gets a little radical, and they worked it out. Sometimes
it's a weird thing with Jeff. I mean, he has quite frequently. Either it's a show host or someone on one of the pages we have our information on. He gets into a fight with the guy. They get into a verbal, shouting match on Facebook, and then at the end of it, the guy who started the fight with Jeff wants to be friends. It happens all the time.
Mark, I don't know. No, Jeffrey's old lady's name's Christine. No, I actually know who you're talking about. That was like 3 girlfriends back. Yeah, well, Jeffrey's. We're not going to say. We're just going to leave that alone. No, Jeffrey and I are friends. We're going to just leave that alone. Whatever that comes. Well, he's high strung. He's a very high-strung liberal, yes. He must have been having an orgasm if he was watching the Camilla thing last night.
Oh, God.
No, really. No, we're not going to talk politics. I actually thought about it. I thought about just converting this show into a junior news on the flip side today because we used to do that in the past because it was an interesting debate. And we will be talking about it on Friday. But I wanted to wait. I wanted to wait till Friday. I wanted to see what the polling data was going to be. Because Trump had just got hit with some really good poll numbers. He had come way up in the polls. Yeah. And I had seen some good stuff come in Monday, Sunday and Monday. So I said, well, we'll wait and see. And then we'll go from there. I would hope he would make it. It is a question that we pose. It's not just us. Several UFO groups pose a question to Donald Trump. Would you tell us? Donald said if he finds it, he'll tell us. Yeah. But, so did Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton also said if he finds it, he'll tell us. Hey, U.S. Army vet, how you doing, man? What's that? Any research investigators based in Ohio? It's funny you bring that up. We've been looking for a new director there. My old director had to retire, so it's a real short story. I've had 5 or 6 directors retire because they became fathers and mothers. So this guy, his wife had twins last year, or year before last, his wife had twins. But he said, okay, I can handle it and do this at the same time. Well, just 3 weeks ago, she had triplets. The poor babies. I said, look, don't even try. You got your hands way too full. I said, if you get yourself in bind, tell me. We'll start putting out things on the radio to get you helped out. Five
kids,
all girls.
And what? 2 years? 2 years apart?
Yeah, about 2 years apart. So he's got 2, and then he's got 3, and.
That poor man is going to be broke until one of them hits the lottery or all of those girls get out of college. He's going to have no money. He does really well for a living. But good.
In the old days, we used to always say girls were more expensive, but it's not really true today. unfortunate with the new fashions for guys and gaming. Guys can be more expensive than daughters. Ain't that a bitch, huh? Used to be, yeah, I want a boy because you want a boy because you're a guy, and because they're less, they don't cost as much. Well, unfortunately.
Well, and on the plus side, if you're an environmentalist or an ecology type person that want to save the environment, muscle cars are going away. Chevrolet this year stopped making the Camaro again, and their plan is it 2030 or is it next year? I don't remember. But within next either 2025 or by 2030, the entire line of Chevrolet wants to be electric. Barf.
They're out of business.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They're done.
Well, no, I mean, U.S. Army, but if I can always teach if you want to get involved. I mean, we, it's funny because we're in the middle. Well, not in the middle. We're just restarting. How can I say this? We're rebuilding ICAR. We're changing it okay. ICAR is now, 30 years old, 31 years old. Yeah, about 31 years old. And it's been around a while. It's got more research than any alien organization out there by far. MUFON, you mean MUFON, not MUFON, yeah. MUFON. MUFON's a joke. I was a director for MUFON. So was my wife, so a lot of my friends. I was way up and I was friends with Walt Anders. The problem with MUFON is it's the black hole of Calcutta. Whatever you put in, you never see it again.
Yeah.
It's just it. It's gone. And I've given them letters that would just disappear and then show up at my house in the original envelope and the original letter, cut into little tiny pieces, and then all taped back together. And you knew it was old because the tape was yellow.
Yeah.
Which means they got it, did it, and then put it back together. What the is that about? And it's not the only one letter. So it's I don't know what to tell you, people. It's weird shit.
And why would they do that? Why would they take a letter, shred it, and then take the painstaking time to tape it all back together?
Do you know how hard that was to put that letter back together? I mean, that's and it wasn't like it was one page; it was several pages.
It must have taken several hours.
The first one we sent to them was about an experience that Lynn and I had for 11 days in Gulf Breeze, Florida. It had to be 15 pages. I don't even know how they got it. They got all the pieces back. I don't even know. It was like a crazy puzzle. Good. We'll talk, US. We'll definitely talk. What's that, Carolyn? Co Trump. I'm all happy for you, baby. We don't do politics. We do politics on this show sometimes and religion, but only pertaining to extraterrestrial. Sorry, guys. Oh no, Jay and I, and we're going to be getting ready for the election and for what is it, the 5th of November.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a regular member of the network or you're a regular listener network and you'd like to get involved on show night for the political show, feel free to write to us. But we usually have anywhere from 5 to 9 hosts doing this, and this is looking like this is going to be a really close election, so it should be a lot of fun. It's one of the few nights I allow hosts to drink while they're on the air. It is, including myself. Yeah, it's one of the few nights that we're allowed to drink. That and New Year's and Halloween, sometimes we'll have like a Halloween party. Everybody get toasted. Time before last, we had one and I didn't get it. I was out of town and I just came in right at the end. And I said, well, I got to go to bed. So who was it? What's his name? It was Laura Lee's husband, boyfriend. They stayed up playing music until like 6 a.m.
Wow.
Yeah. They had a good time. I mean, yeah, that's what it's for. We are. Oh, actually, I'm glad you said it. We got 2 music shows that just asked if they can come on board. I have not had time to send the information to Michelle, which I'll try to do in the next day or two. Well, right now I got a lot of stuff going on with my friend passing, the hurricane coming. Plus, my car now decided that the traction control won't turn off. The light's on. And as long as the light's on, the bitch won't go past 3rd gear. So it'll shift the first 2 times, but when you get up to like 50, it won't shift.
Yeah.
And I was like, he's watching your transmission. I said, no, it's not. It's something to do with that. I said, because when it goes off, it ships just fine. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah. I said, the first time it happened was driving through a flood and it dried out a day later and it worked fine. And then it's done it a couple times. And then the other day it did, and it won't go off now. So they told me it was either a fuse or a sensor. So we're going to track it down. If anybody knows anything about it, feel free to write me.
If you take it to an AutoZone, they can plug it up to a device and it'll tell you whether it's the sensor or the device itself.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll probably do that. I was thinking about going buy one, but I forgot AutoZone does it for free. So
yeah, it's free.
Yeah, which I know they do. They're really good. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on with our government and extraterrestrials. Most of it's absolute bullshit. Most of the stories you hear are absolute bullshit. Unfortunately, there's a lot of crap out there. What's that? Wait, what? Hold on a second. I'm moving down just a little bit. Okay, now you want to see what kind of tie I'm wearing? Oh yeah, you've never seen this tie before? Yeah, I've worn this tie before. It's a very nice, silky, soft tie. It's a kind you like tie up your girlfriend with. We'll save that for Friday night show too. But what's that? Jolene, because it's got a G. Okay, I got you. Hey, I don't know. Some of y'all got some weird names. But anyway, getting back to what we were talking about. So Uncle Sam has always been limited in the amount of information he has for several reasons. The main one being they're compartmentalized. So, Jack knows this, John knows this, Cindy knows this, Samantha knows this, Carol knows this, Chris knows this, but they're not allowed to talk to each other. And if they do talk to each other, they cannot share information. If they do share information, guess what? They go to prison.
Going to jail.
So it's one of those things that you have to incorporate and think about. Now, I've been really lucky because I'm the in-between guy, meaning they can talk to me because they're not going to jail if they talk to me. Well, because one, what do I know? I don't know Jack. I have a Class 10 security clearance, which is way up there. When I say, it's hard for people to understand when they hear me say Class 10. I don't think they quite understand this. I was allowed to take apart everything inside the reactor room on the USS Nimitz and work on all of his electronics and board the conning tower. And every piece of electronics include missiles, bombs, and everything aboard all of our, at that time, which was the F-18 Hornets and the F-14 Tomcats. So my clearance is outrageously high. I would be considered one of the biggest security. Then I would have been one of the biggest security risks around because I would have had, intimately working knowledge of all the key systems on the aircraft carrier and all of our jets. So yes, my clearance was ridiculously high, much higher than the average person. It was higher than.
Put in perspective, the highest clearance that the president can obtain is clearance Q. So yours is above that.
Yes, it's above. See, well, unfortunately, the president. What's that, Bruce? No, the presidents need to know. See, I could go to Area 51. He couldn't. No president's ever been to Area 51. They always say, "Oh, I'm going," and they always tell him, "No, you don't have clearance."
Bush Senior went.
Yeah, he didn't actually go to Area 51.
Not president, but he has been there.
Yeah, because he was head of the CIA. That's why.
Yeah.
Was that Chris? Okay, first off, the military does not control Area 51.
The CIA controls.
It's either it's whichever one does domestic. I always get them confused if it's CIA or NSA. I get confused between the two.
Well, Area 51 was set up by the CIA, along with Skunk Works, the top secret plane project for the SR-71 for the U-2 spy plane. So the CIA owns the project area. The buildings were built by EG&G, another subcontractor, and everybody there, except for the Navy, I think, U.S. Army, U.S. Air Force, U.S. Space Force, all have different projects going on there simultaneously.
Yeah, well, Space Force removed all their projects, and actually, so there's been some shift in powers lately. Mm-hmm. So when Donald Trump created Space Force became the cap. And what I mean by that is they're over the Navy, they're over the Air Force, they're over Area 51 now. They're over DARPA. But when you're over DARPA, you got some shit to talk about. For some reason, Trump decided that we needed an all-in-one inclusive force. And I understand why, because if y'all remember 9/11 and the disaster that happened during 9/11, it was because the FBI, CIA, and NSA and all them weren't talking to each other. They weren't allowed to share information. That's right. They were not allowed to share information. Each one of them had a different piece of the puzzle. If they would have been allowed to share information, that disaster wouldn't have happened. They would have stopped it ahead of time. So unfortunately, they changed the rules. When they changed rules, that allowed for Space Force, after it was created, to come in and say, okay, DARPA, you have to answer to us. Navy, Air Force, you have to answer to us. Anything deal. Now, let me clarify. The Navy and Air Force does not have to answer to anything to DARPA as long as it's not space related. But if it's satellites or any type of spacecraft, yes, the Navy and Air Force both have spacecraft. They have their own space forces. You didn't know? Oh, Jesus. Anyway, the Navy has been trying to develop something to go into space for a long time. So has the Air Force. Mostly what they put up now is drones and satellites. But And then there was a rumor going around that the U.S. Air Force and the U.S. Navy got together and decided they were going to build a space carrier where the Navy was going to supply the carrier and the Air Force was going to supply the craft.
The space fighters, yeah.
Yeah, well, we already know the Gen 6 space fighter, the Gen 6 fighters can go into space, or are going to be able to go into space.
Yeah.
So that's one step closer to their dream.
They may not be able to make it to the moon and back, but they'll be able to exit the planet's atmosphere and take out enemy satellites and that kind of thing.
So just to help you out with this, they started the first aerospike engine ever to be tested is being tested this week. And the first one to ever be tested in the atmosphere is being tested this week.
Wow. Cool.
I know a lot of y'all don't know what an aerospike engine is, but it is badass. You're talking 3 times, 4 times the speeds of any conventional aircraft we have today. It makes the SR-71 look like it's a slow bow.
We had a ramjet on the D-27 drone that flew on the back of the 71 Blackbird, and that thing went. I mean, you couldn't launch it until the SR-71 was going at least Mach 3.
Yeah,
that's when you can launch this drone. That's how fast you have to go to get the engine to start.
Well, these are badass craft. These are not designed. These are designed for in the atmosphere and out in space combat. These are weapons. These are not exploring ships. These are weapons.
Are they VTOL or STOL?
So what this does is Russia already bitched about it twice. China is like, well, we're going to develop our own, and of course, the Space Force is like, go ahead, we're already in space, feel free.
Yep.
And Xi Jinping was like, wait, what? Well, remember, John, no one can own anything in space. There was a treaty in 66 or 88 that the UN signed. Everybody in the UN signed saying you can't own anything in space. Okay. That is countries, not companies. Oh, yes, my friend.
Yeah.
So there was a big loophole. Go ahead.
Countries that didn't sign it. So Russia's not part of that.
No, Russia signed it. China signed it.
Did they? Okay.
Yeah, you lost your charter in the UN if you didn't sign it.
Well, they're not in the UN, are they?
Yeah, they're in the UN, the United Nations. Yeah, they got a veto vote in the United Nations. So does they're not NATO, but they're in the United Nations. They've got a veto vote. China's got a veto. I never understood that. Okay, you want to be voted on? Why does everybody get a veto vote? Well, all the big countries got a veto vote, really. So what happens is China wants to do this, America vetoes. America wants to do this, China vetoes. It's bullshit. Is what it is. But no, I didn't know when. I don't know when they gave. Russia got it originally when everybody else got their veto votes. China, I think, was down the line. I think they brought them in later on. Well, the UN is for tracking UFOs. The UN is that's what the UN is. It's not its job. It's not its mandate. Its mandate is to bring world peace around, which it's doing a piss poor job of.
Yeah,
I'm not going to get into that.
Their work.
Yeah, they're not. Well, because the biggest problem with the world is today, and even the aliens don't seem to be able to change this. The United States, Russia, and China, and the EU just don't see eye to eye. China wants to be a communist. Russia would like to go back to communism, but I don't think it's going to happen. And shit, for that matter, the United States is trying to go commie. So,
well,
it's a strange thing to watch when you've been as long as I have been. But see, and then we've got aliens watching all of this. They're sitting there going, "Are these humans just ignorant?" And what makes all this more interesting is recently, so they found, I know Jay and I, and we've talked about this on many shows about Cro-Magnon and Neanderthal interbreeding with each other. Now, how in the hell can the two of us know this in detail, but they just figured this out yesterday?
Yeah.
Really? Where have you been? But the thing is, they think it happened much earlier than the original thesis on this. So then they found a cave 30,000 years old that have humans in them, and not like Stone Age humans, but humans somewhere in the bronze or what was after bronze?
Copper.
So they were somewhere between where we are today and where, say, in the 1700s was. No, 1500s. I'm sorry. They don't know who the hell. They've been finding shit all over the place lately. They found a whole damn bunch of cities down in South America. They have no idea what they're for. Not just one. They found a bunch of them. The more they scan, the more they use that LiDAR to scan the jungle, the more crap they find.
Yeah, they found evidence in Europe where Homo erectus Cro-Magnon, Neanderthal, and Homo sapiens sapiens, that's us, lived in a communal area where they all apparently lived peacefully together, probably interbreeding, probably interacting with other tribes that might be also mixed, and probably warring with other said tribes as well.
What's that, Pete? Well, no, it just seems. So reason I bring this up is because when you're an extraterrestrial, because they've been here longer than that.
Yeah, millions.
So they've watched us crawl, up and learn how to walk and become what we are today and interfere here and there. We know what, you've heard us talk about the Sumerians and the Dogon and the intervention of the reptilians and the human type aliens. All this is pretty straightforward. It's out there. It's written all over the place. People want to change it. What I like is like David Icke. Okay. David did some really groundbreaking work in the early days.
Yeah.
And then for him, unfortunately for him, someone redid the translation of the text. There were several big errors in the text, like Planet X, Naribu.
Yeah,
so when Ike talked about it, he was talking about like this massive planet 5 times the size of Earth and talking about how it came through our solar system. Well, that's impossible. It would destroy us. Well, no, the gravitational field of a planet 5 times the size of Earth, if it even got as close to us as Mars, it would cause irreparable damage to our planet.
It would pull the planet apart.
As it is, there is a tiny tug from the asteroid belt on our planet, which was supposed to be a planet 5 times the size of Earth. So maybe that's what started a war. Somebody blew the damn planet up as it was going through the solar system. I really don't know, but regardless, it wasn't that. So the new thing suggested it was some type of craft that would come in every so often and park out near the moon, which they said was about the same size as the moon. But it's hard to tell if that's true or not, because if it was closer to the planet, it might look the same size as the moon. Now, if it was like actually parked next to the moon and it was the same size, then of course it was the same size. But none of us were there to see it, so we really, really don't know. But we do know that it was written not just by the Sumerians, but by several other races talked about this thing that would come around and park. Now, when was the last time we seen it? So the Sumerians have to be older than 6,000 years. And the reason I say that is the last time they said this thing came around every 3,600 years. Okay. Well, just so you know, the Egyptians and the Chinese were very good astronomers even 5,000 years ago.
No, so were the Sumerians.
Yes, and the Sumerians, and guess what? None of them seen it. So as of 5,000 years, it has not been back through the solar system at all. So we don't know when the last date of this thing was. Was it 3,600 years before that? Was it 36,000 years before that? We don't know. There's no way for us to actually know, because no one lived to know about it. And then one of the reasons the government gets so, I did read that. The plasma balls over the pyramids, that was cool as shit. I have no idea what that was.
Yeah, I heard about it. I didn't read the article, but I didn't see that.
I have no idea what it is, and I will finish reading it this afternoon or this evening, but it was most interesting. I didn't have time. I was prepping. Plus, I had to move stuff around because of the hurricane and tie shit down. But anyway, so the government knows all of this because they've heard people like us talk about it. They've heard David Icke talk about it. They've heard Billy Myers talk about his stuff. They've heard who was it? Fire in the Sky? Not Fire in the Sky.
Travis Wilton's Fire in the Sky.
No, not Fire in the Sky. Chariots of the Gods. No, Chariots of the Gods.
Oh, Eric von Daniken.
Yeah, Eric. No, he don't speak English. Whoever said that. And as far as I know, he don't speak English.
He does speak English. Not very well, but I mean,
I've interviewed him twice, and we had a translator. Well, one time, Michael Horn did his interview for him. I've interviewed Michael Horn a few times too. He's an ass, but he hates me. He hates me because I busted. So I was the guy who actually busted Billy Myers. So he hoaxed some stuff. Oh, no. Before anybody starts writing to me, I've seen a bunch of stuff pop up. Wait. So Billy Myers is a legit contactee. Now, I want y'all to know that coming into this. But for some reason, after a few years, I guess either his contact stopped or he couldn't get pictures or whatever it was, he felt the need to hoax. And then one guy says, well, how could he hoax it with one arm? I said he can tie it on the back of his little scooter, ride to where he's going, park the bike, take it off, set it up. You don't have to have two arms for that. It's not like he's bringing anything heavy. And you never know if he had friends or family helping him out with this. All we know for sure is there was a couple of them hoax. Like you'll notice there's a pine tree, perfect pine tree, and there's a UFO in front of it. Well, you know that UFO is not real when you look at the pine tree and the surrounding grounds. one, there's no movement of anything on any of the branches of the trees, but more so than that, it was out of context with everything else around it. So if its true size was what he said it was, then it would have took like a mile and a half, and it just wasn't.
So the other clue was he had all these pictures of various types of craft that the was he visited by the tall whites? I think he was.
He went back and forth on who his aliens were.
I don't think he was sure, but anyway, I believe he called them Pleharans or Pleiadians.
Yeah, I think he called them Pleiadians or Pleiadians, something like that. Whatever the translation is into his home language.
Right. Yeah, I suspect they're probably closer to Charles Hall's tall whites. But the vehicles of the pictures he took early on are not really ornate. I mean, it's just like a sleek silver polished disc. Then
and you know what the problem with that is, right?
Yeah,
only the Greys use disc. So.
Yeah, only the Greys use disc, but but these were a little bit more, I think, elaborate than the Greys discs. But however, they weren't very ornate. Then the visitations or the abductions, or whatever was happening with him, stopped, and that was a kind of a money stream for him. So he started faking them, and then they found one of the fake UFO. He built a couple, and he put all these little tchotchkes and little greeblies all around it, little dots and ornate things. So they look really, really ornate, but they're fake. And then they found the one that he took the most pictures of in his garage, like leaning up on its side behind a couple of things. So he got caught really bad.
The one he's talking about, there was an oil. It was an oil painting. It was big oil painting. It was, I don't know, 6 foot tall, 7 foot tall, by maybe 3 foot wide. It was a picture of the one with the pine tree. Is it? And somebody said, "Oh no, he just painted that to remind him." But no, when you look at some of his pictures, oil has a distinctive look, so you could kind of see some of the like lines and cracks in the lower part of the picture, which were obviously cracks in the oil. But he did it on other things. He did it on paper. He did it on a few things, and it's just a shame because when I busted him, which I was trying not to bust him, to be honest with y'all, because I had talked to him before I knew he was legit, but Michael Horn was just pissing me off. So I said, "Okay, you want to go like this?" I said, let's do this by the numbers. And when we were through, Michael couldn't even speak. He was so mad at me, and he bugged me for like the next 10 years. Let me come and show them, because he was trying to correct it. And I kept trying to explain to him. I said, "I'm not saying that he's not a real abductee. I'm trying to tell y'all he is. He just decided, and he's not the only one who's done this. There have been other people who said they're contactees or abductees or have had sightings that have fake stuff, because sometimes you do get money off of it, but you also get fame out of it and prestige and people who talk to you. And he didn't look like he was about the most, famous kind of guy where he was from. So these kind of things, might bring you crazy fame, but it still brings you fame. And people get used to the attention. And what happened with him is I think he really got used to the attention and the money, and he had to find a way to do it. It just stopped. And contact does stop sometimes. Well, it's not even that it stops sometimes. Sometimes they just don't let you remember. And it might have simply been, in his case, they cut him off because he was telling the world. What's that, Christopher? The Greys have so we'll go real fast through this. The Greys use saucers, about 8 different types. So you've got some that are very sleek. They're kind of squatted. There's a very little thing on the top. You can tell there's a little thing there, but it's very small.
Model, for example.
Yeah, and then there's a smaller version, which I call the 3-seater. It's probably some type of either scout craft or shuttlecraft running stuff back and forth to the main ship. But there's several different types of saucers. Some of them are quite big, and some have arrays with this little thing on top. And I imagine each one has its purpose. The reptilians use what you call an elongated saucer. So it's like a saucer, and somebody grabbed it and stretched it out. So it's long, and then it turns around. And then, of course, the humans use triangles. Most of the time when you see a human craft, it's a triangle. It's probably where we got the idea from. Well, it is. Oh, well, Michael, that's a whole different thing. So listen, we busted this. So a bunch of contactees were writing to me saying they kept seeing this rectangular, big, huge thing in the sky that sometimes would have 5 humps on top and 3 humps on bottom and 2 on top. Anyway, every time they saw it would be different. Well, we found out what it was. So the saucers land, and half the saucer insets into the craft, and the other half sticks up like a hump.
Yeah.
So it was actually some kind of landing system Yeah, it's like,
Yeah,
I don't think it was mothercraft. I think it was maybe a carrier might be a better way of saying
carrier
it.
would be a better word. Yeah, the mothercraft of there's a very good video from the 50s where they show a cigar and a small silver disc zips around through the screen, and then it doesn't dock with the cigar. It actually flies inside, like into a hangar bay.
Yeah.
But if you recall back, Independence Day, the first Independence Day, when the aliens come, they have this gigantic ship that's is the size of North America, I think they said in the movie. But underneath are all these little circles, and when they get close enough, all these little circles undock and they flip over and they become flying saucers and they surround the planet. So that's the kind of situation you're talking about. Is that a docking system like that? I would not call that a mothership. I would call that a carrier.
It's yeah, we carry the carrier too. I mean, it's probably legitly the best. Was that Chris? It's probably the best way to describe it. I don't know if there's any other way to describe it. It's the way people see it. It's what they tell you they see. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming that's.
I would look at it like this: the smaller discs that are on this craft, the carrier, probably aren't inter-solar. They probably can't travel from one solar system to the next, unless they're very close. And the larger one that they dock on, it gets them from point A to point B, millions and millions of light years away, where they can do their stuff, whether that's invading or, taking experiments or whatever.
Frankie, well, no, that's what they do. I mean, these were craft like the ones like he just said. These are ones probably running around. Why is it so dark in here? These are some of the ones probably running around. They might run around our solar system. I doubt they can go outside of our solar system. They maybe if they're a bigger saucer, but the ones we're talking about on landing craft on the carrier, I don't think are made. I think they're made for like running in between planets, running back and forth from the ship to the planet.
So it probably could go from here to Jupiter, here to the moon, pretty easily.
Something like that.
Here to another solar system, it probably doesn't have either enough energy or enough power to get that far.
Yeah, I just don't think that's what they're designed for. So, no, we've documented on many occasions. A lot of people have seen that. Oh, no. So, motherships are a very strange thing. So, you heard Jay talking about the cigar-shaped one. Now, that was used. Somebody said that was like how did he say it that day? The contactee, somebody who was familiar with the council said it was like a UN ship. It was used to
with probably different species.
Yeah, so different species could land and go. Not just the only ones that are allowed to visit are the reptilians, humans, and grays, the light beings, the cleanup crew, and the other whites. Charles Hall's whites, but other than that, they're very strict on who can come here. And I think the reason they are is because you never know who's going to slip up and do something stupid or give us technology you're not supposed to. You never know, because remember, according to both the reptilians and the humans and the Bible, they were regularly breeding with each other or sleeping with each other.
Yeah.
So maybe they didn't want humans to be quite so friendly with their other side. Well, Chris, think of it this way. So when you hear him talk about a reptilian having sex with a human, any contactee reptilian or any time contactee human that's contacted by a reptilian are family. They're in their family lines. They only abduct inside family lines, grays, humans, and other ones. The grays, humans, and the reptilians all abduct inside of family lines. Now, the reptilians take it very personal because it's their family line. It's different with the other two races. They just, we're just abducted in your family line. But with the reptilians, because they interbred with us a long time ago when they gave us that little reptilian sections that make us who they are, they consider us family. So they're not as apt to wipe us out or eat us or anything else because we're family to them. They really do consider us family. They may not always be happy with what our dumbasses are doing, but they're not like the grays and the humans who consider us. The grays look at us more like pets. And the human aliens,
like the pet that they would take home and pet, but something of the order of a lesser creature.
Yes, it's just
kind of how the way we look at pets.
Yeah, they know one day that we're going to be an advanced species. Probably in a a million years, we'll be pretty advanced, but not even nowhere near their advancement.
Well, I don't know about that. If you look back just 100 years, let's go back 124 years to 1900. 10 years before 1900, there was no gasoline. There were no cars. There were no planes. People got around this planet by steamboat or by train. And it took months to go from America to Europe by boat. And if you wanted to go from, say, New York to San Francisco, it took weeks because trains back then only went 25, 30 miles an hour.
Yeah, if that, sometimes it was slower than that.
That's it. From 1900, things just take off. 1900, we go 1905, cars. 1909.
Whoop, I lost you. What happened? Okay, Jay got
I accidentally muted myself while I was touching my computer. So I'll start over. I'll start with the timeline. So 1900, nothing. Steam. 1905, we now have petrol, gasoline cars, and trucks. And then eventually that will translate to boats and planes. 1909, we get the first airplane. 1940, just 31 years later, we invent the plane. 30 years later, we now have a jet plane that can, go super fast. From 1940s, 1960s, now we're on the moon. So we went from nothing to not having nothing. All it was steam and coal. And 124 years, we got men spinning around the Earth. We got people that have been in the outer space for months, almost a year. Those two poor bastards that came off that other space device that exploded or almost exploded. And it's only 124 years, and our technology has exponentially increased every 20, 30 years.
Yeah, we're on a I think it's a doubling. I think right now they're saying it's a doubling of 15 years. Somebody tried to say it was 2 years, but it's about 15 years or 20 years that we double our technology. But the problem is the Greys double their technology every 2 seconds. So it's almost impossible for us to ever catch up with them. Plus, they have the council and the light beams, which are already so much more advanced. And the light beams themselves, we may or may not become them one day. So that's the most advanced that we know of in the universe currently, which a lot of people like to call them the Q, because that's the kind of advanced they are. They're omnipotent super beings. And they're the ones that enhance the Greys. They didn't create the Greys, but they enhanced the Greys and made them the second most powerful beings in the known galaxy besides the light beings. That's why the reptilians and humans are always like this when they see them, because they don't want to get into shit.
They don't want to get disintegrated.
And remember, everybody always thinks of the Greys like this tall, Okay, there's a 3-foot Grey, and there's also a 3-foot Grey, not android, what do you call them when they're half human, half machine?
Cyborg.
Cyborg. So, and it's a weird.
I don't think we can call them cyborgs because the Greys have described their drones.
Yeah, because the Greys run them.
More of a biological construction than of a construction.
So
does that make sense? I mean, it seems like they're grown biologically, but yet they're still a cyborg.
So they grow them like that, but they enhance them somewhere. But okay, so it's funny, people, when it comes to Grey's technology. Grey technology isn't mechanical technology like we think of technology. So like their ships are grown. So these things, when they're growing these 3-foot, they're enhancing part of their brain so that they can do everything that they want them to. But the Grey, the alive Grey or the other Grey, can control them. So it allows one Grey to control a whole shitload of these guys out there doing whatever they need them to do without risking a regular Grey. It's a very good idea, actually, especially when you're
without exposing themselves too.
Yeah. Well, think about it. I mean, there was lots of stories during World War I and World War II where people who were being taken out of the military situation and shooting up a bunch of Greys on board a ship or a bunch of reptilians. A machine gun will kill a Grey. It won't kill a reptilian. It will kill a human. Usually they're shielded, but if you catch them off guard, no, it'll kill them. They're vulnerable to die.
They're not shielded. The Greys, at least, and you might call this shirt or fabric they wear more akin to mythical mithril.
Yeah, it's probably what it is, something like
but
that.
They have a shirt. I mean, it's like the consistency of a t-shirt type of cloth that will stop a bullet, and it will not harm the person underneath. So all of the energy somehow is absorbed by this shirt, which is, I believe they call it atomically aligned metallic fiber, and that's where we got our Kevlar from. Our Kevlar is not quite as good as theirs, but it will stop the energy of a bullet, and it's as thin as a t-shirt. You try that with our Kevlar, and you're either going to die or have several broken ribs.
Yeah, well, the problem with Kevlar is it's layered. So
yes,
it's usually about this thick. Where what we're talking about with the Grey is not even as thick as the head of this frickin' screwdriver in my hand.
Like I said, it's like the fabric on a t-shirt.
So it's a much different. And we'll get there. Don't get me wrong. Eventually, they're working on fiber material right now. They found something in South America, some new plant that when they put it together, it's very tough, way tougher than Kevlar. So they're just figuring out how they're going to turn it into clothing. Well, yeah, they want to turn it into clothing so that the military people can just wear it.
Oh, wait, this you'll like this. So Roswell, 1947, which never happened according to the U.S. government.
Damn,
At least
Roswell.
it didn't happen in the way we think it happened. For them, it was it happened in 1947 when they dropped some dummies in 1952 to test rocket seats, rocket ejection seats. But they did also just announce that there is a new metal called memory metal, and I haven't seen any pictures of it, but they announced that they're working on it, or they have a working version of it, and it sounds just like the young Proctor lady described. She's the one that always would cry in the video, the Ancient Aliens videos. It's like this thin as tinfoil. You crinkle it up in your hand, then you open up your hand, and it goes back to its shape. But it doesn't unfold itself. It moves like water, kind of like the liquid Terminator. It is like mercury, and then it regains the shape that it was before you crinkled it up. Apparently, we are making that now here on Earth.
Yeah, the first time I ever heard of that was in the Roswell Journal. It was along with what they consider to be today's aircraft aluminum, microchips, and fiber optics. It was included in, well, there's a little, I don't know if you can find it anymore. I had a copy. I probably still do on one of these computers because I keep everything like a pack rack. But in the Roswell Journal, I think that's what it's called, the Roswell Journal, they did a story on what was supposedly found at Roswell. So there was these aluminum bars with writing on it, but you could take the bars and twist them and bend them and pop them and smush them, and they would just go back into shape. They would just go right back into shape. But then there was something else they found, which we consider aircraft aluminum day, which is also kind of a memory metal in the fact that you could make it into a wing, and anything that hit it or dented it, it would just come back into shape. But it was vulnerable to weapons that we use today, because we didn't. The problem with redoing alien technology is we don't have the chemicals that they originally used. So we're trying to find something close because we don't know what the chemical was. It's not on our periodic table.
The elements they use, we don't have access to. They don't exist in our solar system.
Yeah, they don't, and that's the problem. It's not on our periodic table, Jimmy. That's what the problem is. It doesn't exist. They have found stuff that just is not on our periodic. Well, think about this. Remember when we found Higgs boson, it wasn't there either. But the collider's been finding shit all over the place that's not on the periodic table. We don't know how big it is
for the longest time either.
Yeah. We don't know how big it's going. The table's going to end up being. I think it started out with 50 or something. I don't know, Chris. I'd have to look it up. I don't know how many it is now.
It's something like that.
127. It's over 100. I know that, but
they also just recently added the if you remember the original one, when we were in school, you had the table of the elements, then you had these two little blow-ups that came off of it that were either man-made material or material we suspected was available, but we hadn't found it yet. Well, of those, the first line, it has the 115 element, unum pentium. They added that whole bar instead of speculative elements, they're now known elements, or they're on the main box again, on the big square. But I remember being in high school, and I graduated in 1984, and I did very well in the sciences, particularly the earth sciences in my high school. And I remember the periodic table. I remember specifically element 115 being. How do they suspect this is there? What evidence, what information do scientists have that tells them this is out there? And I didn't really think much about it. But 5 years after I graduated is when Bob Lazar comes out and starts speaking about unum pentium, because it wasn't named on the table in my.
Yeah, that one.
It just said 115 UUP, and that's it. And then the atomic information. Well, he called it unum pentium, and then it wasn't discovered. They announced that they whatever they did, they can make it now.
I just seen that one too. It was on.
So
I think it was
started off. They called it unum pentium, then they called it then they called it Americanium, and then they changed it to Moscow, which is where the particle was made. But I mean, that doesn't prove aliens exist, but to me, it does. Because I've followed that element from high school, and then this weird guy Bob Lazar goes, "Yeah, it's real, and it powers their ships." And then here we are, 40 years. My 40th anniversary or 40th reunion is coming up. 40 years after that, it's available.
Yeah, so they said it's 118, but the one you're talking about is actually listed as 119.
Unum pentium?
Yeah, it's got it on here as 119.
Well,
as
115 is what
created
it could be.
as created in a lab.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, everything after 95, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, were created in a lab or a reactor. It was not something we found in nature. It's something we created.
Either
everything
man-made
after
or
95,
speculative, or they're speculative. They haven't made it yet.
Yeah, I don't know why they always put retarded names on them. Don't ask me why. They just do. The longer the name, the better for some scientists. I think they just like to challenge their Latin. That's all. They don't get to use Latin often, so they just want it. Pig Latin. I learned Latin and Pig Latin. I don't speak either one anymore. So because a friend of mine used to drive me crazy with that Pig Latin shit. Yeah, go look it up one time with Pig Latin. It'll drive you and start speaking to somebody. I'm going to want to punch you in the head in 5 minutes. I'm just being honest with you. Yeah, Jack, I don't know why. They do change from sometimes. They do change from sometimes how the nuclear weights work, because we learn more stuff about different things. So we learn how things actually operate in the universe. But for us, the more advanced we become, the more things we find, the more things we add to periodic table, the more likely we are to understand how extraterrestrials do what extraterrestrials do. Well, look at the Higgs boson. The Higgs boson was a theory since before I was born.
Since the 50s, and they called it the God
particle.
The God particle. Yeah, the God particle.
They still call it the God particle.
Yeah,
because it's supposed
it allows all other particles to do what they do. Without the Higgs boson, life does not exist. At least not how we know it.
Okay, Bruce, I did read that story. We actually carried it on last Friday's show. They do say science, when they did all the science for our universe, it's not supposed to exist. Hey, Leah, what you doing, sweetie? It's actually not supposed to exist. Yeah, don't ask me. I don't make. Look, people act like I make this shit up. I don't make this up. But anyway, we keep getting sidetracked. So all of this does pertain to what we're talking about. So all this stuff you just heard Jay and I talking about, the government knows about. Yeah. They know about all of this stuff. But their problem is they don't know how to utilize it. They're learning, like when we talked about the aerospike engines and the ram scoop engines. There's a lot of new stuff coming out.
The other thing that they're afraid of is, like you said, is compartmentalized. They only know what we just said. Beyond that, I don't know what the government knows. The stuff that I've been looking for since I was 11, the stuff that Giorgio Tsoukalos has thrown out at us on the Ancient Alien Show, the stuff that Icar and Joe's work have done here on the radio and other places over the last 40, 50 years. I've been chasing this information for 40 years, and it hasn't really changed much in those 40 years. More stuff has come in, more stories, but the real truth behind it, why it's happening, who's doing it, and other aspects, the other compartments that we don't know, that's what scares the U.S. government. Because what stuff that we do know is scary stuff. I mean, it's Star Trek, Star Warsian stuff.
There's an unexpected thing for the government. So some of us we're talking about compartmentalized. So I've got a lot of friends in the government. I know a lot of people in compartmentalized places. I know a lot of people work for Boeing, Lockheed, and several other areas.
The government his entire life.
So I've got quite a few friends and other people who are in these places. So it's weird for me, but put this in perspective. I'm in Laughlin, Nevada. This is 10 years ago. I went to go do a lecture in Laughlin at the largest abduction conference in the world. So I'm sitting there, and this guy comes up to me, starts talking. He sits down. He says, "Hi, I'm Colonel such and such." Hey, I said, "How you doing?" He said, "I'd like to talk to you about something." So he said, "Would you like to have dinner? I got some friends that want to come." So he brought me 3 people who work for Boeing. Two for Boeing, 1 for Lockheed, 2 generals, and himself and 1 major. And we sat down and had dinner. And he said, "Now, we're not supposed to do what we're about to do." He said, "But since we're all friends, we've been doing this for a while." He said, "I've been listening to you for a long time." He said, "I'm one of the ones that have them hack you and say hi and stuff like that." I said, "Yeah, that's really nice of you. Thank you, asshole." Because he used to interrupt my show on a regular basis. They don't do it as much on this. Well, not recently anyway. But anyway, so he sits down. He says, "Okay, I'm going to tell you this." He said, "And then I'm going to go up to the bar and get some cocktails. And I'm going to take these guys with me." And then the next guy would start telling me. By the time all 7 of them actually were done, I had a wealth of information, but I was the only one out of all 8 of us that had that information, because they would only go so far with each other. Because of course, if you cross a certain boundary, there's no coming back. And if the government finds out, guess what? You're going to go spend prison in a deep, dark hole without any. And let me tell you how this works. If you break your security clearance, they don't even have to give you a trial.
No,
they can drop you in a hole somewhere. Oh no, John, you can bitch all you want and say you can get a trial, but no. So I've heard stories of two prisons deep underground that you can't even get to, and there's, I don't know if it's an oil rig or a submarine off in the Gulf. It's a prison.
Yeah.
For people who have broken certain classified things. Don't ask me. I don't plan on going. You. I don't plan on going. But the point being is, over the years, because I've met so many of these people, I've got a lot of the pieces of the puzzle, a lot more than most people get. And it's scary for me because sometimes I wonder if some asshole is just going to come get me. So I was in Washington, D.C. doing a lecture at the press club, and I was talking with Edgar Mitchell. He said, "Yeah, I've heard about you. You missed got all the secrets on the planet." I just started looking at him and laughing. And not Edgar Mitchell. What's the one who said we didn't go to the moon? Buzz Aldrin says, "Yeah, I've heard about you too."
Poor old deluded Buzz.
Yeah, so he said, "I heard about you too." And I looked up at him like, and Stephen looked at Stephen Bissett was there. He looked at all three of us like, "Joe," I'm like, so he said, "Can we talk?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, Stephen, look, we're going to go." And they set us up a table in the back room.
Allow me to interrupt you for 1 second. If Edgar Mitchell or any Apollo spacecraft astronaut came up to me and said, "Do you want to talk?" the first thing I'm going to say is, "Pick me up off the ground because I just fainted." And then I'm going to be like, "Yes, can I buy you dinner?"
Remember, people, Edgar Mitchell was the second person to step on the moon, or the third, or the one. He was the one that was in the spacecraft, wasn't he? The one orbiting the
No, I think he was on the moon. He went.
Yeah, I think he was.
He did go twice.
And so anyway, guys,
you look him up real quick.
So anyway, I'm sitting there, and but maybe it was Buzz that was flying around in the ship. I don't know. I get him confused, but what's that, Christopher? I've interviewed me. So Apollo, Mercury, and Gemini, I've interviewed over 20 astronauts. On the shuttles, almost 40. All pertaining with UFOs, and all out of that 60 something people, everyone said they saw a UFO or something else. Everyone. Yeah. I wouldn't have been interviewing him otherwise. Jeff Chandler, I think his name was, he's the one that brought me the footage of these weird things flying around the shuttle in space. And I was like, what the? And, but anyway, the point I'm trying to get to is obviously somebody watches over me, because if not, somebody else would already snatch my ass up.
He was the sixth person on the moon, Edgar Mitchell.
And what was Buzz Aldrin?
Buzz was number two, right after Neil. He went, and then Michael Collins was the guy spinning around the moon waiting for them.
Well, Frank, Buzz has said we didn't go to the moon on more than one occasion. Now, when we were in DC, and I'm sitting there having lunch with him, he says that to me, and Edgar Mitchell goes, "You knocked that." I can't even use the language he used. He said, "You know damn good what." He said, "Yeah, but people are stupid, Buzz. I mean, Edgar, they believe it all the time." And he was playing people left and right. Oh yeah, he knew exactly. But in the end, he did confess that he was lying and that he did go to the moon. But regardless, sitting down there having lunch with him, he goes, "It was so weird to hear him say they knew who I was." I said, "Oh, well, I do a lot of lectures and a lot." He said, No, that's not how I know who you are. I'm like, "Well, what do you mean that's not how you know who I am?" He said, "I know you from somewhere in the government." And I was like, "Excuse me? What do you mean you know me from somewhere in the government?" I mean, I knew the government was aware of me because of some of the stuff that's happened and some of the people that showed up and some of the times we've been screwed with.
He was a Navy pilot, and he is described as a Navy astronaut. So he probably knew some admirals that he could look at your jacket.
Oh, he asked me all about my military service.
Yeah.
He said,
I guarantee you, he probably read your whole jacket, dude.
he goes, "Yeah, I'm reading about you." He said, "It's he said, I see you as an enlisted man." He said, "And then I see you something here where you were doing a plane captain's job. And then all of a sudden it says you get promoted to lieutenant." He said, "Who goes from E4 to lieutenant?" Well, who did you know? He said, "Nobody does that." He said, "You should at least went to a yeoman or a lieutenant JG." He said, "Nobody goes from E4 to lieutenant." And I'm like, E4 is a petty officer, actually a third class petty officer in the Navy. I was actually getting ready to go from a second class when they bumped me. And anyway, so I get, he said, "I know about it." He said, "And I noticed after that, there is like 3 pages of blacked out shit." He said, "What is that?" He said, "Joe, even I don't have 3 pages of blacked out shit." He said, "What have you been doing?" I said, "I talked to people like you and I categorize." I said, "I talked to people like him and categorize it." And the guy who was flying the what was the bombers back then in World War II? He was there. He had seen
B-29 Stratofortress.
He was one of the commanders, and he was talking about A Night with the Foo Fighters, which was a fabulous story, people. I mean, they talk about taking off and these things following them around, and they talk about they ran into the enemy and these things were flying in between the Germans and their cells. He said it almost looked like they were taking bullets for us. And he said, I couldn't honestly tell you if that's what they were. And he went into a lot of detail. It was a freaky, weird, creepy, scary, exhilarating story all at the same time. I can't even tell you most of it because it's classified, but still. It was an interesting story to start off with. So I'm talking to these guys and they're telling me all this stuff. And they're like, well, we want to know who you are. I said, I'm just Joe. He said, you're not just Joe. He said, too many people in places know who you are. You can't just be Joe. I said, nobody knows who I am. I said, I'm not even on TV. He said, you know, that's not what I'm talking about. I was like, I said, well, I don't know what to tell you. And then that's when he said, well, I see your clearance could get you into Area 51. I said, yeah, but I'm not going because I'll never get out. He started laughing. I said, buddy, I'll get my ass down there. They'll be pumping me for all kinds.
I think you'd be okay if you were just at Area 51. If you went underground, you could get in trouble. And if you went 15 minutes south to S4 and got into that facility, you probably would get into a little bit of trouble.
I'll have to tell you, I can't tell you. I'll have to tell you this story later, but I've been to Area 51, outside and inside. But I can't go into any more detail that with you. I'll tell Jay about it. But well, because I know who Jay's dad was, and I know he understands classifications. But oh no, I went. A good friend of mine took me the first time, and we were outside, and it says, "Don't use your cameras. Don't do this. Don't do that." We got cameras that were banging on the gates and shit. These damn binocular things are following you around, and every move you make, they're lighting fires out there and stuff. I'm like, oh my god, we're all going to prison.
And I've actually heard some interesting paranoid stuff about the current 51, Area 51, is that they have devices, because everybody has a cell phone, so they have devices there that actively deactivate your cell phone. So when you're on base, you will not receive or be able to send phone calls.
I won't forget, Chris.
Be able to send or receive text messages, and I believe your camera also will not work.
No, nothing. Actually, once you get past. It's not the first. Okay, so at Area 51, they've changed a couple of things now. Ever since before they jumped and took the mountains away from us to look, they changed a bunch of rules. So I was at the Little Alien Inn talking to the sheriff, the local sheriff, and we got to chat. And he said, "So this is how it works. So you and I could go bust into Area 51, and as long as we don't go past Gate 2, all they'll do is bring us. They'll pick us up." Bring us to the front gate, and the sheriff will pick us up, and for $750, we can get out, no problems. And you can say you're in Area 51. You go past the second gate.
They will shoot at you.
That's it. They will take you. They'll either shoot you or they'll take you, and they don't have to let you go. You have penetrated a certain type of security that they can drop you in a hole. They can execute. They can do whatever. Nobody going to even know. He disappeared on Area 51, and they're going to be like, we don't know who the hell he is. And don't think they don't know you're there. They know everything. They know when a freaking rabbit's taking a turd, man. They know everything that's out there.
Yeah, they have a fairly wide perimeter to begin with very, very sophisticated sensors. So when you get near those sensors, they know you're there. But they also have the satellites, so they know if your car is heading that way, and if your car doesn't make that last turn or that last left or that last whatever, then they know what's up. And then
you're not going to drive through a gate. You're going to get shot.
You will not surprise anyone inside this base ever.
What most people do is they try to go in somewhere a couple of miles from the gate.
Well, and the outer perimeter isn't military. It's private security too. I forget the name of the company.
So you can sneak in as soon as you touch the wire, they know you're there. If they haven't already seen you. But once you start walking around inside the thing, they got little sensors all over there. They got sensors that look like cactus and rocks and shit. You don't even know they're there.
Well, it looks like a stick, but you know it's not real. And they have like the obvious ones, like it looks like an orange pipe coming out of the ground.
So it's a very strange thing. So I want to get back because there was some other stuff I wanted to bring up about talking with Edgar. So I'm sitting in this room. And after Edgar said we didn't go to the moon, after Buzz said we didn't go to the moon, Edgar tore his ass up. He said, look, the reason I wanted to come in here, he said, I heard a lecture you gave where you were talking about Neil Armstrong. I said, yeah, because I wanted to know. He said, well, I'm going to tell you now. Because I interviewed the reporter that interviewed Neil Armstrong that said that we went to the moon and we got warned off by aliens. So I asked Edgar about it. And he looked over at Buzz with this look. And Buzz looked down. He said, so I said, oh, so that's why you keep saying we don't go to the moon, because you're scared your ass is going to get assassinated. And his eyes got like this big. And I was like, son of a bitch. He said, all I can tell you, Joe, he said, I know your clearance is higher than mine. He says, is that everything that Neil told you, or everything that Neil told the reporter that told you, was absolutely true. 150%. He said they were there. He said the weird part was we landed. Neil got out and was walking around. I got out and I was walking around. And he said we kept seeing like a shadow off in the distance. So he said we wanted to go check it out. And they kept saying, no, 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 no. He said, so then they started headed towards that particular direction. Everything went dead. Everything died. Everything electronic just died. Or I shouldn't even say electronic, because back then it was pretty much not solid state. It was old school. But anyway, everything just died. Yeah. Yeah. All the cameras died. All the lights died. Everything died. The communications with NASA died. Everything died. Yeah. He said there's just
Collins in the command module floating around.
Yeah, everything. There was no communicating with anything. He said
he probably lost his shit if that device stopped functioning correctly.
Yeah. So he started thinking, oh shit, we're going to die right here on the moon, because now all of our equipment has failed, because they didn't know what it was yet. And Neil kept saying, he kept saying Neil kept pointing. So they were walking. And because, I didn't know if they even had a rover on 11, to be honest with you.
No, they did not have a car.
Yeah, I didn't think they did. But anyway.
I think it came out Apollo 14, maybe.
Yeah, so he said, Edgar said, Buzz said we walked about a mile and a half. He said it wasn't that big a deal, because what do you call it? We were skip stepping, is what he said. They would like skip a step and go skip. So they were like making 6 yards for every step.
Like what, 10 yards per foot? I mean, so
but he said that's what they were doing. About every 6 yards, they would just skipping. And he said there was a little ridge on a
crater,
impact crater. And he said we got there, and he said as we went to look over, something was looking up at us. He said, and it was in some kind of, it wasn't just skinless in the air. It was in some kind of suit, and it just looked at us. And we thought, wow, it's some kind of crazy robot. Maybe the Russians put it here. Maybe it's something the Russians sent when they crashed, and it was in there. And he said, and when I stepped over, and Neil stepped over, you look down, the whole crater was full of shit. He said there was like these 5 or 6 big round things that looked like saucers that had these tubes connecting all of them. He said it looked like a bunch of saucers had landed, and they put some tubes between it, and they made their own little mini city. I was like, you're shitting me, right? And he said, no. So he went into great detail about a lot of this. And he said, and then the thing that was looking at him was making these weird sounds. And he said, we got scared, and we turned around, and he said, we they started moving like they were running. And he said, we got back to the lander, and the son of a bitch and thing, 3 of them were standing in front of the lander waiting on him. And they were like, you got to be kidding me, right? Yeah. So the guy, it said something. And Neil said, no, I'm the commander. If you're going to do something, you're going to have to do it to me, because I'm the one who brought us here. And Neil said, it looked up at him and said, don't come back. He said, you don't belong here. You're not supposed to be here yet. Don't come back. And Buzz said that Neil said, well, look, we're coming back. We've already got 20 missions paid for. There's no way to get out of this. We're coming back. So he said at that time, the thing handed him a map. This is the first time I've heard of this, by the way. Handed him a map.
This is Edgar telling you. Edgar's saying.
Edgar Mitchell. I mean, no, not Edgar. This is Buzz telling me this. He said he handed him a map that was about, and it was hard, but it was clear. It was like plastic almost. Like a flexible plastic of some kind.
Something we didn't have in 1960.
Yeah, something we got now, but not then.
Back then it was bakelite.
And it was a map of all the craters and all the places on the light side of the moon, which, by the way, there isn't a dark side of the moon. People were just going to use that because y'all are used to hearing that. On the light side of the moon, and he said, you can come here, but don't come back to this spot, and don't put anything on the dark side of the moon. He even gave him a date. I think it was like 2020 or 2010. It was after 2000. I know that. And I think it was like, it might have even been 2000, but he said, don't. And then, so what was funny about this, and then Edgar tells me this, he said, well, Joe, 18, 19, and 20 were paid for, but we never used them. He said, well, you want to know why? He said they were all scheduled for landings on the dark side of the moon.
Yeah.
I didn't know that either. So these are things I'm finding out that I don't get me wrong, guys. I've interviewed lot of freaking astronauts. And
that's the thing is, first of all, I had heard this before as more of a sarcastic joke that people have said.
I'm sorry, I just read what I'm.
But it wasn't reptilians. No, it was a different species. I'm not sure which one. I'm not sure even Buzz or Edgar would know. But what I also heard was that since they were already paid for, when they said, I mean, they came up with the idea, we'll just tell the people it's too expensive, we can't go back. But we had already paid for it. It was already bought and paid for, but they didn't tell the public. So they lied. Shocker. The government lied to us and said, oh, we can't go back. We had 20 missions planned, but we don't have any more funding. But it was already fully funded.
Yeah. And wait, not just that, people, all the astronauts were trained and had been assigned to each mission.
Yes.
Trained and signed. These were done missions. I mean, there was no reason for us not to use them other than what I just told y'all. And actually, who wrote that? US. Yes, I heard that too, that when they left the moon on Apollo 11, that there was a warning sent to Earth saying, do not come back to here. But they also gave details because they knew, because we're humans and we're curious and we're stupid, they knew we were going to come back. So they just wanted them to stay away from where they were. And I guess we honored that because we're still here.
We honored it in fiction. What's his name? The guy that wrote 2001 and 2010. In the 2010, the aliens say basically the same thing. Do what you want anywhere else but here. Come back here, and you don't know. You don't want to know. If you remember that warning at the end of 2010, when Jupiter turns into a star and creates life on Europa, which we've been talking about here on the show and on Friday's show, the aliens, whoever make the obelisk, the black disc thingy, the black rectangle, that species tells us don't come back or we'll kill you.
They were pretty serious about warning us off. And then what's interesting about it is Edgar and Buzz told me this. He said, look, we're gonna hook you up with these other astronauts and let you talk to them. Well, 3 of them I'd already talked to. He said, no, you asked the wrong questions. So I went and they actually set up the interviews. I didn't. And we were going to do on-air interviews, but then who was it? I can't think of his name right now. He called me and said, well, some of what we're going to talk about, I don't think you should put on air. And we got to talking. I said, okay, shit, we won't do that. We'll meet in person, because interviews like these, you never want to do over the phone because you don't know what's going to be said. That, and they know that phones are being listened to, so that they pull back on what they're going to tell you. But if you go to places where it's hard
on this platform.
So if you go to places where there's certain types of noises, even the listening devices can't hear you. So
that's why outdoor parks. If anyone see JFK, when they take the DA, I forget the character's name, but he walks them out into the middle of the mall in DC, and they sit on a bench where people are walking by and cars are driving by. That's all white noise. If you get into enough white noise, doesn't matter what kind of bugs, unless the bug is directly on you and it's very sophisticated, like the kind of stuff you can get today, like on a cell phone, there's no way you're going to get any kind of, you have to read lips at a distance, basically, is what it boils down to. And then there are some spies out there who are capable of reading lips.
What's that? Frank? Oh, no, it made landfall a while ago. It came in as a Cat 2. Yeah, Hurricane Francis. Yeah, it did. It came in as a Cat 2. I'm looking out my window while we're talking. It's blowing pretty hard out there, but it's not going to hit us directly. It's going to hit us, just not directly.
I've been through Hurricane 3 and 4 categories in Savannah.
No, I've been through 5 since I've lived here. Altogether, I've been through more than 20 hurricanes, at least 4, maybe 5 Cat 5s. I was in Betsy, Camille, Katrina, Andrew. I've been in some.
I went through Andrew.
Yeah, so it's when I was young, I used to volunteer to work the storms, and then I got married, had a kid, and then I was like, maybe not.
Yeah,
it might be time to retire. Lee, where did you go, Lee? I thought she was coming in with us. Let me see if I can find her a link. I guess she didn't get the link that I sent her. What's that, Frankie? Well, you'd be surprised how many astronauts want to talk. It's just they're under, like us, they're under contractual obligation that they can't
tell you what they know. That's the problem.
And so they have to find people like me that have really high clearances and they can talk to me without getting in trouble. Well, it's like my good friend at Boeing, who she's in charge of the scientists at Boeing. She's a scientist herself, but she's in charge of their security. And we talk all the time. But it's because of my clearance. She actually cleared it with her boss. And he did a background check on him. He said, yeah, you can talk to him. He's not a threat. He doesn't run his mouth about things that's told to him. Because doing there's another thing with the government. So doing the Stevensville sightings, MUFON said, oh, it was this kind of alien and it was this kind of UFO, and they went on and on and on and on and on. So there was an all-woman conference. Polola Harris was putting on a all-women's conference there, and I was invited. So I drove up to Stevensville. It was, about 12 hours from where I'm at right now, and hung out. And so we went and had dinner with all the witnesses, and we talked to the witnesses, and I listed all the women speaking. I knew everybody who was speaking, were friends of mine personally. So then they had a big bonfire, and all the witnesses came out, and right where they had seen it, they were going to tell their story. Well, a good friend of mine, matter of fact, Joe Renard, who told me my good friend Jason Wilson had passed away, was with me. And Joe has the ability to go through crowds with a camera, and no one seems to even notice. He's done this for me 3 or 4 times. No one even seems to pay any attention to him. He's just like he's like non-threatening or something. I don't know how he did. I couldn't do it. People would be looking at me like, were you filming me? I'll have to tell you about a story about a little alien in because I was filming somebody, but he does it. But anyway, so we're sitting there, and a friend of ours was there, and Jason was there, and we all they bought a case of beer, and we're drinking some nice dark brown beer and listening to the stories. And the guy's talking about this big V-shaped thing, and then he starts talking about rivets. I'm like, rivets? Whoa, wait! This first I heard rivets. Whoa, wait, back up, stop, rivets. Nothing flying in deep space at high speeds has rivets because it can fly apart. I'm like, so, and then he talks about chase planes. The little chase planes you see inside the shuttle when it used to come in? That's what he was talking about, chase planes like those. So
I think those were F-109 starfighters.
Yeah, so he's talking about those. So then he talks about just 8 rows and 8 rows, and there's 16 engines all together. There's 8 and 8. And he's talking about they're glowing red, and I've seen this before. They're glowing red. And then all of a sudden, they just all went white at one time, and the damn thing was gone. It didn't disappear like a portal open and close, and it just took off. And he described it in great detail. Actually, all of them described it in great detail. Well, it was headed for George Bush's ranch, and he was president at the time. And there was a squadron of F-16s in the air flying about 30 or 40 miles from where George Bush's ranch is. Well, they were not diverted towards this thing. And it was showing up on radar, on different radars, not all radars for some reason, but some of the radars that was showing up on. So you've got an unknown craft headed for the president of the United States when he's home, and you're not diverting a squadron to go see what it is. That means you already knew what it was. So right then and there, I listened to him. I got the recording. I sent the recording over to a friend of mine who worked at Boeing, and I gave it to her, and she called me within, I don't know. Hey, Leah, she called me. Where'd you go? She called me within an hour of getting it. And she's like, okay, Joe, I'm going to tell you what this is. And she basically put it off as one of the Type 3 Auroras. See, there's an Aurora, but there's a bunch of different types of Aurora. Aurora is just like a title given to a offset type of plane. So it's a particular design. And so the Aurora has 3 different types of engines on it. So she's telling me all about it. It's got what we would consider a ram scoop or aerospike engine today. It also had some kind of gravitational or magnetic drive, but it had some drive I've never heard of. That's what those big flaming engines in the back were. It was something that they said it could easily do Mach 50, Mach 60 inside the atmosphere without even a problem. So I'm like, well, what the hell is this? They said the problem wasn't in getting it up to speed. The problem was in controlling it. They couldn't make turns with it. They tried one time to make a turn, killed everybody on board, and then destroyed the craft. They had to self-destruct the craft because it was headed over to China. It had already left the United States and was over the Atlantic, headed for China when they blew it up, and they had to go recover it. So she got into great detail of what actually was going on with this thing. But they claimed it. They said it was theirs. So it made more sense after that. So then I called MUFON because I got a bunch of friends at MUFON. I said, hey, this is what went down. They're like, oh, we're not changing our story. So then I called Ken Cherry up, who was the director. I said, Ken, what is this bullshit? You're going to just stick with the bullshit because y'all need some UFO reports? I said, what's going on here? Ken's like, I'm not. He said, I'm with you. They need to change the report. It's ours. It's not theirs. And he said, yeah, I seen the report when you sent it over about the ribbons. And he said, as soon as you sent it and you heard ribbons from the witnesses, he said, matter of fact, because of me, they added that to all of their when they teach now how to do investigations, you have to ask if you could see rivets and any visible signs or any type of connections, because gray ships are seamless. So are reptilians, so are humans. They're seamless. There's no seams anywhere. There's no rivets and there's no seams. It looks like they're made in one piece.
Which is kind of why, and it's well, number one, that's the thing that gave Billy Meyer away with his faked ones. There were rivets on it. That's much
rivet.
Away. But the one that Bob Lazar describes, there are no rivets. It's completely seamless. And he said when he touched it, it felt more like flesh than metal.
Didn't Bob Lazar also say that it was all like one connected piece, like made from like
he
one
said it was
solid
like as if
piece?
it were. He said as if it were machined out of one piece of aluminum. That's how he could describe it. Like it was completely seamless, like one part. There was no top, no bottom, no front, back.
I liked Bob, but he was such a rookie. So in case y'all didn't know,
when it comes to like the man-made machines, isn't it like if it's got an exhaust, like a visible trail behind it?
Theirs have exhaust too. It's just it's vented differently.
Well, I don't know if they got exhaust like we consider exhaust. So the Grays craft, you don't see anything. It's when it's in our atmosphere, it's not leaving any type of trail. It doesn't. No, it doesn't. It does, not only does it not leave a trail, it doesn't even leave a heat signature. So we've actually been in we've actually been in the field with the equipment that doesn't leave a heat.
Not with real Star Trek stuff. If we had the actual real Enterprise here, the way it worked on the TV show, we'd be like, oh, there they go. Yeah, they're close.
Well, no, because if it's a magnetic or gravity drive, it's not going to have any heat signature, and it's not going to have any.
It's going to make a wake though in the magnetic streams. You're going to be able to find it.
Yeah, it shouldn't. Yeah. I would bet you that even the reptilians can't find the gray ships. I mean, when they go out, you can't. I mean, anybody who's seen them will tell you they're there, they're gone. There ain't no seeing them. They ain't no finding them. They don't even when they go through clouds. Listen, when they go through clouds, they don't even bust up the clouds. It's almost like the ship is slightly out of phase with the
that's the electromagnetic bubble around them. But I guarantee you, it leaves a trail. It must. It has to.
No, it doesn't.
It's in between dimensions. It's like not part of this actual physical reality. It's something
that's
emitting that much power that can transmit between two dimensions or put itself out of phase or whatever. It leaves a footprint.
No, I would bet you money. I would bet you money that during those wars they talk about all the time, that was designed so it doesn't leave a trail, so it can't be found. I would bet you they intentionally did that so you can't find them. You got to remember, these guys are 1 billion years old. Their technology is nothing that we can actually present. Remember,
but there are certain things you can't get around, and the fact is that thing will leave a trail.
No, actually, that's not true, because right now, an F-35, unless you're using high-end equipment, you can't find its heat signature or its trail.
You guys don't
our equipment. I'm just saying that's our equipment, and we can't find it. So just imagine what they have. What's that, Bruce? No, you can't. F-35 cannot be seen on heat signature. You can flash it up there all day long. You're not going to find a heat signature.
Due to a couple things: the skin and the nature of the angles that it was made on.
And then the way it diverts its exhaust, it ripples it out, so you can't find it. It thins it before it comes out, and then it's such a spread that you can't find. I would imagine the Greys have something way more advanced than that is. And they probably don't want to be found. I know the humans and reptilians can't find them when they're looking for them. So it's they're just so. Remember, the gray ships are grown. They're organic. They whatever drive system they're using is something we do not understand, or probably will not understand for probably 1 million years or so. These are, I mean, we're nowhere near ready to grow ships. We're getting ready to grow chips, but not ships.
The best way to describe them is if you watched Stargate SG-1. I know it sounds stupid. It's a TV show, but they have two species there that pretty much compromise and make up the Greys. They have the Asgardians that look like the Greys. They're short and spindly and big heads and big almond-shaped eyes. And they have really big spaceships with really awesome technology that nobody can beat. And then they have
except for the replicators and
no, not the replicators. Replicators are an enemy. No, then they have they're kind of like the Goa'uld, but they're like the good guys of the Goa'uld. They have worms in their brain, in their bodies, and their brains are
the Tok'ra.
The Tok'ra. and the Tok'ra, they grow their bases.
They do.
So
Got a
they
carbon
don't
chip.
look like the Greys. They look like humans, but they have a worm in their gut. They take a stone, a certain shaped stone, and they throw it in an underground facility, and it drills a tunnel. Either so far straight and then stops.
Yeah, well,
Then
what they
went-
use is crystal chips, and each chip is
Right, they use
designed to do a
crystals, little
certain
crystal
thing.
rocks, and then they go to it. They get to that next end of that tunnel. They throw another shaped crystal, and this one makes a turn. So then that's how they build their bases. They grow the environment. So that you take the Greys from SG-1 and the technology from the Tok'ra, and you have what the Greys do. It's been said that if you touch their ships, it's like touching the skin of a whale. Your hand kind of
Actually, if you touch a Grey
inside
ship, it will react to you touching it. It feels you.
It'll make noise.
You can almost like pet it. They're organic. They're alive. They're sentient. They're not like the reptilians and human ships. These are sentient, alive ships. And the only way the Greys fly them is to actually merge with them. They meld with them. But they have no onboard equipment because anything they need, when they think about it, the ship creates it, and when the ship's done with it, it disposes of it. It retracts it, I guess, is a better way of saying it. And they run off that blue plasma that they grow themselves. I mean, this is a technology that we can't even dream of right now.
Actually, we can. This technology is talked about in Star Trek: The Next Generation. I forget the title of the episode, but they pick up a near psychopathic telepath who's the same species as the counselor on the ship, Deanna Troi.
Yeah,
Tam Elbrun, and they take him to this object that's sitting outside of a star that's about to go nova, and it turns out to be a living spaceship that can house about 1,000 humans.
But that's a different kind of living spaceship. That's
but it's the same idea. If you watch
it's a hatch. It's a hatch ship.
Yeah, but it's still though it's very similar to what you're describing. When they go on board, Data the robot and this guy Tam Elbrun go on board. The guy Tam Elbrun, the biological dude, touches the skin of the creature, and it makes a noise, and his hand kind of sinks into it and almost disappears. And then Data goes up and touches it, and it's like touching drywall. It's like slap.
This is because it don't want nothing. Well, Data's also a machine too.
Yeah,
what's that, Christopher?
The object does not recognize him as a living creature. So
I have had people talk about touching the ship's inside and out, and the ship reacts to them. It also reacts because it not only does it feel the tactile sensation of your hand, but it can read your mind. So it's not whatever you're thinking, it reacts to. So when you touch it, you think, "Oh wow!"
Does it have a lifespan, or is it like forever?
I don't know. As far as we know, it's unlimited. But they're like the Greys. The Greys really don't have a lifespan either. The Greys are unlimited as well. But like what the Greys will tell you is that things happen. Shit happens. You get exposed to cosmic radiation of some kind, or something else goes on, or you get in a war, you get in a fight, or something goes on. So, they have to be replaced from time to time, just like the Greys' bodies have to be replaced sometime. But they can grow them. It's just a carbon. It's kind of like when you hear people talk about this, the best description in today's world is we're growing carbon chips right now. So these chips are the minimum megahertz is 250,000 megahertz. They don't get hot. There's no heat involved because it's carbon. They're just the biggest problem. They've been having this, by the way, for more than a decade. The reason they haven't been used yet is they can't really figure out a way to write software that interacts with them correctly. There's no real operating system for them yet. Nobody's been able to come up with an operating system that changes them. Remember, no one actually really knows how a microchip works. You can't even see the damn thing. There's no periscope. There's no microscope we have today that can actually see down to what actually makes them work. The first time I heard a scientist talk about this, and actually worked for Microsoft, he said, it's very strange. He said, I often wonder where this technology came from. He said, because we really truly don't understand the workings of this thing. We got a basic understanding of this, and this, and it crosses through here and it does this. He said, but there's other things inside the chip that we really just don't know quite how to interact. It's like the universe that's not supposed to exist. Sometimes there's just technologies we don't understand. And we're getting there, but the Greys you're talking about a race that was enhanced by the light beams. I doubt we're going to be anywhere around their technology for at least 1 million years. To be honest with y'all, I'd figure more like 50 million years. We're such a baby in the grand scheme of the cosmos. As far as I understand, since we're not actually part of the council, we've got to be one of the very young races.
Yeah, well, I mean, if we started on this planet, and this planet
If
is
we started on this
Do you
planet, you're right.
and
Jesus
if this
Christ
planet
isn't
is
part
only
of the
5 billion
inner
years
caucus?
old,
Wait,
we're only
one at a
one
time.
or 1/5 the age of the universe. So there are things out there that are 3 and 4 and 5/5 more older than us.
Yeah, that's the thing. And are we native to this planet? You know, biological clock doesn't really say that we are. It seems like maybe we're Martians or something. Well, Jimmy, we don't know. As far as we know, the fifth planet, Mars, Venus, and Earth were probably all alive at the same time. Mars definitely got life on it. It's got life on it even today. NASA finally gave in and said, yeah, we're pretty sure there's life and a couple of types of life on Mars. They've got liquid, they've got water, they've got heat, they've got atmosphere. That means they got life. They're pretty sure any planet that has those things will always have some type of life.
And Mars and Earth are close enough that with optical telescopes, visible communication is possible.
Yes. And Venus is right there too. So you got all three of them inside the inhabitable zone.
Oh yeah, that's also telescopic range. Yeah.
So technically, the fifth planet in the solar system, what's not a planet anymore, is a asteroid field. So recently, science had to give up on that. It was just leftover remnants that all got sucked together.
There's too much of it. It's just.
So it's not even that it's too much. It's some of the stuff can only be created in a compressed environment.
Yeah, it has to have been compiled into a planet.
And it's more than that. So some of it, they say, had to be compressed in a planetary thing. But when it was destroyed, you could tell by some of the debris fields that there was some kind of explosion of some kind. Nobody knows what, because we don't have anything ourselves that can blow up a planet yet. Oh, Christopher, give us time.
We have a Death Star.
It's not ours yet. It's somebody else's. What was that, Leah?
What's the council you're referring to?
The Council of the Nine.
Yeah, so when I first got in this field, that's what they called it, the Council of the Nine.
Yeah.
Right now, I think it's something like the Council of the 17 or something, to be honest with you. But
what would be the difference between that and this? What is it called? The Galactic Federation.
It's all the same thing.
They're the same thing. They're the same people who contacted Gene Roddenberry in the beginning of Star Trek. The very first season, the Enterprise is controlled by a group called the United Earth Space Probe Agency.
Well, you're saying there's
listen.
no humans that are a part of that?
Not in Star Trek. No.
Not even Christ.
No.
The Redeemer.
No.
Why would he be part of it? He's not as advanced as they are.
Yeah, and he's fictional anyway.
No, he's not fictional. They proved that it existed. But matter of fact, before we'll bring this up on Friday's show, but I'll give you all real quick. So just recently, they posted 15 sources where you can find 15 different people, different countries that are talking about Christ. You can also find but by the way, I didn't know some of this stuff. I didn't know Christianity had reached Rome. I did not know this. There was a couple of things I didn't know it had reached. He also
spread it the most throughout Europe.
The reason that I asked that,
yeah, but that was after his death.
The only explanation that I have for his virgin birth is that the Mother Mary the Mary.
Okay, there was no virgin birth. Okay, let's get that straight now.
Well, let's just
either God impregnated her or one of them Roman soldiers impregnated.
I have to call it something.
Well, but somebody did something. If God beamed down the seed and put it in there, that's still, creation. Or she was abducted.
She had an implantation.
So Mary roamed around in the desert for it was 3 months or something. Now remember, the desert was full of Roman soldiers, and she was not a virgin. Everybody forgets that she was married before Joseph. She'd already had children, and so I was a little confused about the whole virgin thing. And back in the day, you didn't get married.
Well, that's why those books are taken out of the Bible, is because they reveal, Jesus' older brother and sister. Yeah.
So the thing of it is it's just, no, Joseph, who was that, Chris? No, Joseph was married twice, but Mary, I'm pretty sure, had children, if I remember the story correct. It's been a while.
Yeah, at least
I'm not
two
real Christian.
Joseph.
Yeah, I'm not a big Christian anymore, but it doesn't really matter because there are all these different places. So there's an emperor who had written to Jesus about helping him get himself cured, and Jesus agreed. I I don't know what the rest of the story was, but so that's well documented in their country. The Romans documented in 5 or 6 different places. The Jews documented in 5 or 6 different places, but several Muslim countries also documented it in different places. So we know the person existed. But remember this, the only ones that say he was the son of God was the Christians. No one else believes it. The Jews said he was a minor prophet. The Muslims said he was a minor prophet. The Romans said he was a very charismatic leader, but that's all he was. None of them gave him super abilities or superpowers. Only the Christians did that.
Well,
the Bible did that, actually.
Until he upset the money lenders when he showed that their lead weights were fake, made out of clay. Then he was a wanted man and then sentenced to death.
He never cured the blind or leprosy or rose Lazarus from the dead.
But whether he did or not is that's part of the fiction. But if you believe the actual stories, he's not wanted for any kind of crimes until he upsets the marketplace and shows that the moneylenders are using.
That ain't even what got him killed.
That's what got him killed.
No, that's not what got him killed. So Ponce, whatever his name was, the Roman emperor, or not the Roman emperor, the Roman governor said, I will not condemn this man. That's what he said. He said, I will not condemn this man. The Jews had to condemn him. He said, I will not condemn. He said he has done nothing wrong. He said he has done nothing wrong for him to be executed. The Jews just want him dead. He was too popular. That was his crime.
He was upsetting the status quo, and he
was upsetting the status quo, and he was too popular. There was too many people starting to follow him, and it was worse than that because they were pulling away from the Jewish religion and following. Well, it wasn't Christianity back then. I don't know what the hell they called it, but they were following Jesus and not the Jews, and that caused problems. And then because what's his name didn't want to execute him, he pretty much said. The governor pretty much said, no, I'm not executing, not putting this on my soul, buddy.
But Pontius Pilate had no problem doing it.
No, he didn't. He told them that the Jews had to do it. They said they had to condemn him. He hung him on the cross, but the Jews had to condemn him because he said, is there no man that will stand up for him? And the Jews were like, no, we want him condemned. And they had him executed. Only Pontius Pilate could put you on a cross because he was the governor, but the Jews are the ones that decided to put him there. Yeah, Jack, I know it's a sucky story, but it's a true one. Yeah, unfortunately, I used to teach this. Worse than that, my wife was a Pentecostal for like 25 years. Oh, my God. She knows the Bible better than most priests do. It's, oh, man, look. I don't even argue with her about it anymore. I learned my lesson. And I taught, like I told you, I taught Wednesday and Sunday school when I was growing up. It's my problem has never been that Jesus existed. My problem's always been, what was Jesus? Was he an ordinary?
See, that's where I'm at, too. I want to know, like, I've been trying to justify his
most people think his teachings were heading back towards patriarchism, and that's what got him killed also.
Yeah, so I mean, really, to be honest with you, if you really got, because none of us were there, but I would think it was a combination of things, with the popularity just topping it off, because he put people following him. And remember, somebody said, well, he fed the multitudes with a wave of his hand. Well, we can do that today, by the way. The only thing we haven't really got to is walking on water without help. But we don't know if he had it or not. As far as
but making frogs fall out of the sky and insects come and eat the crops and be a nuisance for the day.
They always fall out of the sky in England.
Those happen.
Yeah, well, they fall out of the sky in England. I never did understand it. What is with fish and frogs flying out of the sky in England? I'll never understand.
They did actually find a place in Africa, and I don't remember what show it was on, whether it was Mutual Omaha's Wild Kingdom or National Geographic, but one of those shows, and I'm sure it was narrated by an English accented fellow, they found an area of rainforest in Africa where if the humidity falls rapidly enough, it will evaporate enough of the river to soak up or to suck frogs up into the clouds until they releases the frogs when it rains.
Yeah, so I know. They have lots of explanations like mini worm.
Well, they have it actually. They have videotape of the frogs falling out of the sky.
Oh yeah, they do. They
make it or not, I don't know, but
they showed a little a water spout over some pond somewhere. When it came on the land, it dumped all kind of fish and frogs and snakes on top of everybody. So, but that's just one account. You don't know how many other accounts and what else it might be.
Yeah, but think about it.
Well, exactly. So when you look at the miracles. When you look at the miracles of Christ, how many can we reproduce today? Don't say any, because that's not true. We can reproduce at least half ourselves, and we're not gods. And we're nowhere
Are
even
you
close
talking
to
about
that.
with medical technology?
Not just medical technology, just with technologies in general. So you want to
Well-
you want to feed. Look, so if you want to feed the multitudes with fish, take a stick of dynamite, pop it in the water where there's a bunch of fish, boom, it'll blow them up. They'll all float up to the top. You just go in there and help yourself.
All top, you just scoop them up.
That's not a technology. That's just man knowing how to get to them. So there's lots of things he did, with the exception of curing the lepers, which we'll be able to do soon.
No, we pretty much have. I mean, leprosy isn't a thing in America. It's in maybe some third world countries, but it's in most first world countries, second world countries. It's pretty.
Yeah, but we can't cure it with a
obliterated.
touch. We can't cure it with a touch of our hand. But we will be. There will be within 100 years, maybe 200 years. We'll have devices that you can just put on your hand. You see, it might actually just be your damn cell phone, because we all love our cell phones so much. But there will be a device that you will be able to use that will cure a lot of different things, not just leopard. It'll cure a lot of things. It'll also be able to fix wounds and close stitches and do all sorts of things. They're working on that technology right now. They're also working on the tricorder bed, which is there's actually some out there. Some of the newer hospitals have what we would consider a tricorder bed.
Some of the European hospitals have what
it
they
takes
call
your heartbeat.
it tells
It
the
does
doctor your heartbeat and all those kinds of things.
So it's a lot of these technologies we're going to have. We'll be able to do this, and I guarantee you, within 1,000 years, there won't be anything that Jesus did that we won't be able to repeat with technology. So if you're going to be an omnipotent super being, then you need to be able to wave your hand and create an army, or wave your hand and create a bunch of people, or wave your hand and do away with the Roman army. Things that can't be done any other way but by some type of magic or by some type of super being who has those abilities, like a Q. Now, as far as we know, Jesus, maybe he was one of the light beings. Maybe he was a piece of a light being, broke off into a human, and he decided to kind of educate the population. But remember, what we read in the Bible is not what he was preaching. That's what always bothers me about this.
Yeah, I don't think people realize that since, when was it? After the first 1,000 years of the Bible, the first Council of Nicaea was held, where they edited the Bible. They changed names. They took out chapters. They added things, added chapters that didn't exist. Like, for example, the original name of Noah was Zeusudra.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that would change. If you go back and look, there's a couple of Bibles you can look at today. One is 500 years after the death of Christ. One is 800 years. Those are all available. You can't go touch them, but you can get access to them online. And there's more than that. There's lots of these around. None of those Bibles say anything that they say today. And let's not forget King James rewrote it so he could get a divorce.
Yeah. The King James version is the most modernist one. If you
and the most incorrect,
I think you can buy it's reproduction. You can't buy the actual Brandenburg Bible, but I think they have replications of it now that's fully.
Well,
translated.
You can still get, what is it? The Getty's, what is it called? The ones that are in all the hotels.
I just wanted so badly to believe
it's in that song Rocky Raccoon. That's the only reason I remember it. What was that?
I just wanted so badly to have this image of Jesus on a spaceship.
Well, you probably is. That's what cost me my job as a boss for Mickey D's. They fired me because I said Jesus could be an astronaut.
Right.
Actually, it's not even what I said. I said, could it possibly be that he was an astronaut from a very advanced race? And maybe that's what they did. You ever see the movie Starman, where the guy comes in and goes in the girl, and then he's born, and then he grows up to fall in love with her and stuff? It's a little blue ball about this big around. All of a sudden, he's an extraterrestrial, and then he's a human. That technology, we know with the Greys that technologies exist. So we know with the light beings that technology exists, and probably with other races. So it's not beyond the realm of possibility that he was an extraterrestrial that came here saying, hey, look. And we don't know if God sent him to another world and then he came here.
But he would be part of the Galactic Federation.
Why would he be?
Why wouldn't he be?
Why would he be? Who would he represent? Himself? That's not how the Galactic Federation. You have to represent a group. He doesn't represent Earth.
Because too many Earth.
No, because too many other religions on the planet. Muslims aren't going to go for Jesus. They'll be like, "What the hell's wrong with you?"
Oh, is that what the whole globalization thing is about? Like,
in order for us to
making everything like all homogenized.
Okay. First off, we don't need a new world order, but we do need a united planet. If you ever want to see us ever become anything worth a shit, we have to become a united planet. If not,
and we don't need a new world order. We just need, in general, world order. And there isn't any, because there's two wars currently going on, and either one of them at any one given time now. And we're still waiting for the other shoe to drop. Whatever Iran does and its constituents, So any one of those two things could spark off World War III, and boom, we're gone. So,
Karen,
and the
what's that?
aliens won't stop to help us.
Well,
Karen, I have no doubt believing that Jesus was alive and existed and crucified. I have no problem with that whatsoever. The only problem I have is with the writings that follow. So this just gets me in trouble all the time, still does. And I'll say it to y'all outright and to the thing. If Jesus Christ himself did not think it was important enough to write down what he thought was the correct thing for man, why in the fuck should we believe anything else? If he didn't think we were worth it himself, he let some secondary people 100 years after his death write a bunch of bullshit we don't even know is accurate or not. So what was written in Aramaic at the time of Christ? Well, nothing that's in the Bible, but there was something written in that time of Aramaic, and they say it's in his hand, and that's the St. Thomas epistle, Saint whatever it's epistle. And it simply says, split a log that I am, split a rock there I am. It does not believe in organized religion or churches or any of that shit. That sounds more like Jesus than what we read today. Jesus was supposed to be like a new ager. He wasn't supposed to be this.
Like I said, most of his teachings were kind of trying to go back towards matriarchism, having women in charge of things.
Yeah, he just believed that we should be like a new age society, a one world society, a one love society, not necessarily a one religion society, but a one caring society. He's not the one that formed a religion. They formed a religion after he died.
1,960 years too early.
Yeah, he just went around helping people and got his ass killed for doing it. Well, Christopher, supposedly he died on the cross so that infidels could
erase all of our sins.
Yeah, so we could go to heaven. Remember, only the Jews, the tribe, the 144,000, the 12 tribes of Israel are supposed to be the only ones that get to go to heaven. So heaven's already locked up, done, and closed, if that's true. So we were Jesus was supposed to die on the cross for our sins so that the infidels could go live. They didn't actually call us, they called us something else, but that we could go to heaven.
Gentiles,
thank you. That's what they called us. So that we could go to heaven. That's the story. Is that true or not? Well, I guess the only way you're going to find that out is if you die and go to heaven, or if you die and go to hell and you go, oh, shit, I missed. What do you mean? Am I scared? No, because nothing I'm saying is not, I'm not saying anything that's vicious or evil. I'm not anti-Jesus. I'm probably one of the few people that help prove that he exists. My thing will always be, who was the man?
What about
I don't want to know who was the
one?
Bible. I want to know who was the man. And you can't find that hardly at all.
What about this Christ consciousness topic that I see online all the time?
Well, the law of one, I think that's a modern bullshit fictionalized version.
Well, Christ consciousness started when the Sinclairs said that they were the original descendant line of Jesus Christ, that were his children, that he married Mary and he had children, and the Sinclairs are the original line. I don't know why it would be the Sinclairs. I'm a little confused about that to start off with, but
most people think it's the Merovingians who were direct related.
Yeah, I've heard a couple of different family names. I don't really know, and I'm not sure Jesus would have went that way with it anyway, and made any one family have that kind of power.
Well,
it didn't seem
there's
kind of
huge speculation that he was married.
Because we had to be. So y'all know this, right?
Rabbi, in most cases, you have to be married.
You have to be married to be a rabbi. No, it's not cases. You have to be. If you want to be a Jewish rabbi, you have to
different, be. But back then it was
they're pretty stout about it even today. Well, you know what? I bet you today it's just the Orthodox Jews, but back then it was all Jews. If you weren't married, you couldn't be a rabbi. You had to be married to be a rabbi. So more than likely, he was married to Mary Magdalene. There is the book, and by the way, there is the book of Mary Magdalene, which never made it into the Bible. Mm-hmm. There are 27 books that didn't make it into the Bible.
No, it's like I think the whole thing altogether with the Dead Sea Scrolls added into it, it's like 86.
Yeah, and then, I knew it was a lot. I just know how many.
And then with the modern version, it's like 23 chapters. Or no, I'm sorry, 63 chapters are in there. So again, like at least 20 some chapters are taken out. Yeah.
So, and that's another thing when we get back into the government thing. So, when we're talking about compartmentalized government stuff, Jesus is one of the things you find in compartmentalized. So there is evidence of his existence, hardcore evidence, other than the ones. Oh, and by the way, the 14 or there's 11 plus 3, so there's 14 altogether. Y'all can look this up. The sources of Christ, the different people who knew of it. What's interesting about it is each one has something they talk about him about. So there's actually writings from Pontius Pilate. You can read about that. There's writings. Muhammad wrote something about him. There's other people that wrote about him, and then there's other countries that wrote about him, and then there's people in Rome. So I knew that it went to Rome and it got spread, but I didn't know when he was alive it had spread as far as it had. So his range had spread from not just where he lived to something at least 1,000 miles away in each direction. That's why he was still alive. So there was a town in Rome, that where he had spread to, and so the governor of the town writes to whoever the Caesar was at the time and said, "Hey, what should I do about this? They're overtaking my town." And he said nothing. And they went in. They even talked about the guy a little bit, what he did, who he was. So those kind of things are priceless because this is stuff that no one could change. This is stuff that was written about Jesus and his thing. So when this guy's talking to the Roman Caesar, he's not talking about any special deeds or any special powers. He's just talking about a man who's commanding a large group of people who are following every word he says.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, all those words he preached never made it into the Bible. So, I mean, as we, the people, if heaven and hell is real, we're all going to hell because we're all worshiping the wrong thing. Don't ask me.
I said that quite often and gotten in a lot of trouble for it.
Yeah, so did I. I mean, because I have to be honest. What's that, Frank? No, I think Jesus existed. I have no doubt that the man itself existed. I have no doubt that he did a lot of what he said he did. I have no doubt of that at all. And I think he did have gifts. My problem's always been, is he truly the son of God or is he the son of somebody else? Well, so you have to think about this. God is kind of vindictive and vicious. If you go read the Bible, especially the Old Testament, you know, he did some pretty nasty things like Cain and Abel and some other stuff where you had to prove yourself to him.
And I also said at the same time, it seems like there are two entities that are described as God, not just like, he described him as,
yes, that's true.
In terms of God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. But like,
so
here's God the good guy, and here's God, it's bad cop, good cop, bad God, good God.
So how many of you are going to sacrifice your son to the cross? You know what he did. Everybody knows what he did. Everybody knows what they did to him, so that we could go to heaven. All he had to do was wave his hand. He was God. Well, I got smacked in the mouth by the nun several times for that one. Mm-hmm. The one that got me in the most trouble though was when I asked where God came from. Gee, I got smacked all the time for that one. Because I mean, this is supposed to be the person who loves us unconditionally, but yet he floods the planet and kills us. He burns the planet and kills us. He does all kind of horrible things to people. He says it himself. I'm jealous and vengeful. We're not allowed to be jealous and vengeful.
That's people.
That's
that's the Bible. You better go read the Old Testament. Yeah, you better go read the Old Testament.
Yeah.
Well,
see,
now
you forget there's a whole testament before.
It's humans that are ruining everything and creating.
No, it was always humans ruining everything. That's why there was the Great Flood, because we were out of control. We had become this, and it's also the stuff that happened before. That's also why Babylon happened, because we were out of control. The reason he made us speak. See, in the old days, everybody spoke one language, and then there was a Tower of Babel. He did that because we were growing too fast and populating too fast and becoming advanced too fast. Everybody could communicate with each other. The world was all, and everybody having the same language is easier to be a one world than when we're all speaking 100 or 1,000 different languages. There's 1,001 different religions. I don't have how many languages there are, especially if you count.
I think there's 237 languages on the planet.
So I mean, that doesn't sound like somebody who loves us.
Now that English is taught in almost every country, pretty soon English will be the most popularized, if not already, the most popularized language.
No, we're still outnumbered by the Asian languages.
Well, I don't know which one it is. So I think English is number 2 right now. It's either Mandarin. It's not Mandarin. It's the other one. It's the other one, not Mandarin.
Somewhere
Mandarin's the second most popular in China. I can't remember what it called. The other
Cantonese.
Is it true that once the world speaks a universal language again, like everyone can speak and understand one same language, that's a sign of the end of times?
No. I think it'll be the sign of the end of times when not only can we all speak one language and there's no war, but then we can also speak to, like in the beginning with Adam and Eve, they could speak to the animals. They weren't just pets. I mean, they were hanging out with lions and tigers and bears. Oh my, things that can eat you whole. But they were everybody was friendly, and it was like, paradise. That's when everything's going to go to hell.
So according to this, it's Chinese, Spanish, and English. But I see what they did. So actually, Chinese isn't the most spoken language. So right now, Chinese Mandarin, which we thought was second, they got it as first. 885 million people speak Chinese. Spanish, 332 million. English, 322 million. Okay. So how many people live in America? We all speak
400
English.
million?
How many people live in Europe? They all speak English. Even though they speak other language, they all speak English. So what they're doing is they're not counting the people who speak English as a secondary language, only as a first language. If you count us as a second language, according to this, we are the most popular language on the planet.
Right, that's what I mean. Not I don't mean just.
But they don't
English
count
the
it because
only
we're not.
language.
Yeah, but they
I mean,
don't
like,
count us
people that
because
can
it's
speak-
a second language.
Well, I mean, if you can speak it and understand it, it's that. I mean,
Well,
it
if you
doesn't
fly an
matter
airplane, you
if
have to
you
be
have a-
because all towers in the world have to speak English because it's the most spoken language amongst
Right.
people flying.
I remember being told a long time ago, and I don't know how credible of the source was, but that once everybody is on the same page with one specific language and everyone can understand, regardless of if it's the first language or not, but they could know 5 languages, and if English is one of them, that's the most spoken and understood language, that would be a sign of we're getting close to the end.
That's just a sign. Yeah, we're getting ready to get off the planet is what that's a sign of.
Whether that's voluntary or involuntary, that's another thing.
What's it, Frank? Yeah, I think it says like 1.2 billion speak English as a second language, plus 400 million speak it as a primary. So that's. But I bet you it's more than that. Well, a lot of people don't speak it. That when you go into countries like India and China, a lot of people that speak English, a lot of people don't. Probably half the population does. In some countries, it's mandatory to learn English as a second language. Pretty much all the EU schools teach English as a second language.
Pretty much most of Europe, yeah.
Yeah.
In fact,
The Scandinavian countries do too.
When I went to high school, we had to pick one foreign language. I chose Spanish. In Europe, most schools you have to take English, and then one other. So something other than your. So if you're in Germany, you take English and then French if you want. You take 2 foreign languages. Imagine that.
I know. Well, we did when I was in school. You had to take 2. I took Spanish and French. I took 2 years of Spanish, 2 years of French.
But we are, however, on the dumb side. We're the only country in the world that we learn our language as children, and then we go to kindergarten and grade school, and throughout grade school, not so much kindergarten, but from grade 1 till grade 12, we learn our language again. We were taught more about it, syntax and errors and what have you. Then we graduate high school, we go to college, and we do it all over again. We started to take English 101, English 102, English 103.
English blows everybody out the water. So 1.5 billion people speak English. About 2/3 speak it as a second language. 750 people worldwide speak English as a foreign language, and then 400 million speak it as a primary language.
I think the next language people are going to be taught is coding.
Well,
that's probably
that
might be more worldwide.
World's too well. So I took when I was learning how to do coding when I was in school, just getting ready to learn on the internet because I had to learn it when I was in the Navy, and it's too hard for the average person. Writing code for anything is because it's all these different symbols and they all mean different stuff, and you have to learn all of them. Plus, you got to make up some shit. And you got to put things together to make it do what you want to do.
The first IBM was done. The coding was done on 3x5 punch cards.
Oh, I know.
And my dad was in charge. My grandfather had the first IBM business computer, and it took up the whole basement of the warehouse that they had. And then there was a tray, and I forget how many cards it had. 1,000, 1,500 different cards that had to be in a specific order, and they all had numbers on them, I'm sure. But
I remember when I was in the Navy, they were switching from punch card to reel to reel. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I don't even know what a punch
what a
card
microchip?
is.
It's a card about like this. It's about this long. It's got a bunch of holes.
Have you ever seen a player piano?
Yes.
You know how they operate? They have that piece of paper that scrolls across with little holes in it. It's just like that, but it's a 3x5 card, like a regular index card that has holes punched in it like that, little rectangles. And they're sequenced in order, and there's thousands of them.
That's why the aliens laugh their effing asses off at us.
Yeah.
These
But
people are
that happened
using.
also when they got out of order. He had to go down there and recode the computer by finding all the cards and putting them back in order. 1,500 cards. It would take you all day to do it.
Frankie, the quantum computers aren't quite there yet. They keep saying they are, but they're really not. Because if they were really there, you and I would have one.
Or we would have what they are getting rid of. It is whatever the quantum is replacing. It's better than what we have now. So there's another intermediate piece in there somewhere.
Excuse me, Carl. As far as the carbon chip goes, I hear about it all the time. It was designed in Japan. Whenever somebody can figure out how to write software for it, we'll see it. Oh man, it'll be the only chip you ever buy, or at least you probably will be the only chip you ever buy. You won't need anything else.
I don't know. I still buy potato chip.
250,000 megahertz that don't get hot. Do you know what the kind of stuff you can do with this computer? I mean, that's insane speeds. I mean, there's nothing even close to that right now.
Yeah, but the problem is we still don't have batteries that don't get hot. We still have lithium batteries. If anyone has a lithium powered cell phone and your power gets low and you're playing a game, what do? You plug it in, and guess what happens? It starts to warm up because it's recharging itself and it's exerting energy by you playing a game.
Well, see, to me, that's cool that the carbon chip is not going to produce heat. You won't have to have a fan on it. You won't have to have water cool on it. But still, the RAM's going to put off heat. The hard drive, I mean, not the hard drive, the power supply is going to put off heat. So, yes, it'll be a lot cooler, granted, than it would normally be because, chips get really hot. But, chips get really hot, people. They run at sometimes 120, 130, 140 degrees. They get hot, depending on kind of, mine's water cooled. No such thing as water cooled, liquid cooled. It's called static liquid because if water leaks inside of your computer, it's ruined. This is called static liquid. Device.
But how hot the tube technology? I mean, they were hot enough they would burn the skin off your fingers. But what was the temperature? Like it had to be just 100 degrees or more.
Oh, more than that. It was probably 150 or something. The old tube, because I mean, I had a Akai, a reel-to-reel stereo, which was great. Man, you could stand 10 feet away from feel the heat coming off that damn thing. Oh, it had tubes in it this long, people, this big around. I mean, it's crazy. It was insane. Well, I didn't know better back then. I didn't know anything about this stuff. I didn't learn about electronics until I joined the Navy. And then I learned all kind of good stuff.
We didn't start the state-of-the-art thing until the late 60s or early 70s.
Yeah, when did solid state come in? Like 70? I don't know. I'd have to go look. But
hey, Google, when did solid state become a thing?
Without a tube.
According to en.wikipedia.org, although the first solid-state electronic device was the cat's whisker detector, a crude semiconductor diode invented around 1904, solid-state electronics started with the invention of the transistor in 1947.
Wow. Roswell.
Yes, thank you, Roswell, baby. Well, see, okay, so there's been a lot of argument about is there a natural transition between tubes and solid-state technology? Well, there is a commonality between the two. Believe it or not, there is. It's called silicone. That's the only commonality, though. So it's hard to say it's a natural progression from a tube.
But the only silicone in a tube is the glass.
Is the glass. Oh, and some of the elements are too. But
okay. All right.
Yeah. But still, in a silicone chip, everything except for the gold or the copper is silicone. It's a whole different thing. It's interesting technology, people. And
I would go back to Roswell just to see how much it's changed since I was a child.
I mean, I was not in Roswell that long ago, about 6 years ago. And I got several friends that live in Roswell, so
I feel like it smells like grown so much.
No, not really. And it still smells like a cow town when you go.
Oh God, my parents lived in Glendale, or just outside of Phoenix, and going to the airport or either way to their house or from the airport in that same direction either way.
So I've been going to Roswell for 20.
They smell so bad.
I've been going to Roswell for 30 years off and on. It doesn't look any different than the first time I went. Things are closed and open. Yeah, it looks pretty much the same.
I know how to get around there in my brain.
It's the Walmart still looks like alien. The McDonald's still has alien ships crashed into the side of it. The lights still have little alien faces on them. Roswell Museum still there. Big joke that it is. Did I say that out loud? Shit. I apologize, Peter. I didn't mean to say that out loud. No, we're getting ready to go in about 10 minutes, but well, I got to go check on my car. It's a hurricane.
I heard Glendale, Arizona was as hot as an oven.
Glendale, I don't know. I've been to Glendale a couple times. I don't remember being that hot, but I've never been in the middle of summer. But
100, 103, 110 in the summertime. I mean, that's regular everyday temperatures.
But a couple things before we go about Uncle Sam and our government, because we keep getting sidetracked.
All right.
I know I'm going to have to bring in somebody to just keep us on. Oh, next week we got a guest joining us. It's a friend of Sean Kelly's.
Sean Kelly's cousin.
And we're gonna come. I have known nothing about this guy, so y'all have to tell me about it. We'll find out what we're going to be talking about when he comes in with us. Well, no, we're going to do several shows on government connections in this, because there's a lot of stuff to talk about. We're barely scratching the surfaces of it today. Well, because there's just a lot. Well, and everything's important.
There's so many layers. I mean, it's worse than an onion. It really, really is. I mean,
it
takes forever.
You know, when they say if you can't really trust anything you are seeing or hearing about on mainstream media news.
Yeah.
Well, it makes me feel like, I mean, I don't know too much about certain supposed key players in this whole disclosure movement, but because of the fact that Lou Elizondo wrote a book and now he's being interviewed by every news outlet left and right, makes me feel like he's like just trying to make a buck in a way, like trying to get his name out there and sell his book.
He's like that doctor, what's his face, Dr. Greer, probably Stephen Bissett. He's
like,
probably,
if you know about them, and if they're if they're a household name, chances are they can't be trusted.
Yeah, well,
they're not giving out factual information.
Well, I feel like we can do a show on it. I've done it in the past. Well, I've done it in the past and gotten a lot of trouble for it too. Matter of fact, it kept me from speaking at any engagements for 2 years. Well, I didn't really give a shit, to be honest with you. See, somebody got really mad. I was doing a lecture in, what was it, Laughlin? No, I was in New York giving a lecture. And the guy got really mad at me. He said, well, you don't take this serious. I take it very serious. I said, all 200 of you come here and visit me tonight. I'm glad to see you. And I love talking to a crowd like this. I like to sit down because, I usually do like an hour lecture, and then I'll sit down and do an hour Q&A, and I'll sit down on the edge of the stage with the mic and talk, so it's more personal. But my problem is, in order for me, in order for me to get as many people listening to me as are going to listen to us tonight, I would have to do a lecture a day for like 50 years.
Yeah. So
it's hard, I mean, this show right here, we're going to do 50 shows this year. What is that? 150 million people will listen to us this year. It's 3 million people a week.
See, I
now,
guess
granted, they're not all different, but it's going to be hard, to get that at a conference. Go ahead.
I don't know who to trust out there in terms of like who to believe their stories. I don't know what is like propaganda. I don't know what is this.
Well, first off,
the psyops are. I don't.
First off, a real ufologist will never ask you for money.
Yeah.
Somebody who's in it for the truth will not ask you for money. He might put up a donation thing and say, "Hey, give me a donation," but he will not push you or ask you for money.
Yeah.
Stephen Greer charges his $5,000 to go out and have a spiritual ET connection. Yeah. He's a fraud. He brought in that Koresh guy. See, look at this perfect ending for the nice show.
Dave Grush.
So Greer's been pushing this dimensional theory for, I don't know, about 15 years now. He's trying to prove that ET is dimensional. Okay. I wouldn't have had a problem with that until he started talking, made me think, oh my God, you're an idiot. So this is what him and Koresh believe. Now, how you say that guy's name? I know I said it wrong, but anyway, this Koresh.
David Grush.
Grush.
Pronounced Grush.
Yeah. So anyway, this guy went in front of Congress 3 days. Never one time said anything that was real. Never one time told the truth. Let's not forget he was a spy. The most important thing about both of these guys is they've never had an abduction happen to them. The guy Koresh has never even seen an alien, a spaceship, or any other thing. Okay, and he never said he did. He said that he got all his information from second-hand and third-hand knowledge. That means he can't be trusted because he's a spy. And people lie to spies like you lie to anything. You lied to your kid about the tooth fairy. That's how they lie to spies. So he never would take a polygraph, and he never would take voice test. I did 3 days with him, with polygraph. 3 days hooked up to a polygraph machine. That's the difference between someone who wants to tell you what they know and someone who's just trying to make a career out of themselves. Greer was just trying to make money out of this, is all he was doing. Problem for them is Congress didn't believe him. Congress was like, when I was talking to the Blackadder lady, she's like, no, we didn't know. Because one, So they're saying ships come through all the time from dimension and they fall off. It's like they went through a Stargate and then they just fell down and the ship quit working. So they grabbed the ship and they grabbed the aliens. So how many times do you think the Greys are going to do this? And not, I mean, the Greys have been coming here for a long time, at least 15, 20,000
If that's
years.
true, then we have 15. That will be below average.
Well, they said we have 77 spaceships and 144. I might got it backwards, but
where did he get 77 from? I heard 15 is the biggest number.
Yeah, well, he said there was 77 that fell out the thing and they got them.
Bull, I think that's bull honkery. Well, look, I can tell you one thing. The reason why they didn't believe him is he wasn't saying anything that hadn't already been said.
Yeah, he
literally was repeating a whole bunch of stuff that had been said.
Yeah, there was nothing there.
Discussions with the Senate.
There was nothing there that hasn't been discussed there was nothing there that ordinary people didn't know.
Nothing new whatsoever.
He didn't know anything about abductions. He didn't know anything about alien contact, and all he ever said was every third one would come through and fall through, and they would recover the ship and the pilots. Every third one. Now, as far as we know, there are several thousand gray ships around this planet, so that means they've recovered 1,500, 2,000 ships. No fucking way. They do not have a worse flight record than the FAA does. That's just bullshit. And then what about the reptilians and humans? Where are they coming from? Are they doing the same thing? See, he couldn't even address that because he didn't know. And neither does Greer. And I get tired of the fakies. I look, we went to bat for Greer. We helped him out when he did his thing. We went to DC and helped him out. We brought a bunch of people with us. We went to the X conferences and helped him out. And then I was sitting down doing a table thing where I was talking to a couple of contactees. And this lady said, well, you should come with us tonight and you can have a spiritual contact with an extraterrestrial. I'm like, really? She said, yeah. At that time, it was $3,600. I'm like, what? She said, yeah, $3,600. We're going to go to this place. We're not supposed to be there. It's on the other side. It's on a beach. It's on a military base, but they were on the beach. But they would go around the fence and stand on the beach, and then they would, call in the aliens. And they would have a spiritual enlightenment. And then, so he usually did I think his thing is to do 12 at a time. How much money is that, people? Not really, people. That's $42,000 every time he does that. Remember, Greer was a doctor at New York General. So he's used to making X amount of money. So he can't go making little money. He's used to having a particular lifestyle. Greer doesn't do anything for free. So we found that out. And then Marco, a friend of mine, said, you need to bring him to the show. So he called him to come on the show. And at the time, well, even today, UFO Undercover is still the largest audience show anywhere on the planet. And then it's the whole thing just stinks so bad. So he wanted $10,000 to come on and do the show. I was like, what? Wow. I said, you're smoking. So then I said something nasty and they said, oh, well, $5,000. I'm like, it ain't going to happen. And I said, he hasn't said anything. I said, first off, they're not 52 different kind of aliens. That's absolute total bullshit. I don't know who told him that. I said,
the most I've heard is,
I'm sorry, it's 56. Yeah.
120 planets with something of the order of 80 different species of humanoid creatures. That's the biggest.
Yeah, well, when you talk about the council, it's far bigger than that. It's several million, but that's a whole different thing, though. I don't like talking about the council because there's so much mixed match information about it. There are some basics
compartmentalized. We don't. They mix so much truth and non-truth with just outright lie that it is hard to tell fact from fiction. It really, really is.
Yeah. So I mean, there are some basics like there's a big long rectangular table where the original council sits, and then there's chairs. If y'all ever seen Star Wars, the new series Star Wars, where Yoda is fighting with the Emperor inside that place where they're all met, that's what it looks like.
Yeah,
it looks like that. So there's different races, different places. The whole planet, the city that lives on the planet is designed just for ambassadors. So you come there, that's where you stay, and then when there's council meetings, that's where you meet at. So there's a big bubble in the middle, like a big droop bubble in the middle. All the different water breathers and other fluid breathers, they get in there. And then there are seats at the original council table, which was 9 originally. Now I think they said it's 17. And then there's this whole big arena full of other types of aliens that get to speak. What gets me is a lot of them are not wearing gear, so that means they're oxygen breathing, which is kind of strange. Not all of them, mind you, but a lot of them.
No, I mean that kind of makes sense because there's more air than there is water.
So I mean, so you know, they talk about this, and you get lots of people talking about this, and they talk about the water planet where the big city's located that just hovers around the city. Well, that kind of sounds like out of Fifth Element, where the thing's floating around over the water. But this thing is huge. They said this city is bigger than our moon. That's how many people on it. They said there are literally millions.
Like size.
Yeah, they said there are literally millions of people on this in this city that represent different worlds. And I think I can't remember exact number because I get between 2.5 million members and 10.5 million members. So yeah, that's anybody's best guess. But they talk about it in great detail. And what gets me is everybody talks about it pretty much the same way. There just seems to be different outcomes. But they do say this. When you're there is the light beam, which takes a plasma form who sits in the middle, and the grays are always sitting to the right. Sometimes it's the reptilians on the left, sometimes it's the humans on the left, and then there's other species that some of them I've never even heard of that stretch out along the table. And then there's all these other species that run around. But for the few humans that are actually physically been at the council, they've said there are only X amount of types allowed to come to our world because it's too dangerous to let any more than that here. It's one of the reasons they don't want us out in deep space, because we're ignorant and we'll be going around giving people technology because we're ignorant and going to worlds all over the place. I mean, look what we did to Africa. And South America.
We'd be stupid enough to challenge somebody we're not ready to handle, and then they would knock our asses down and then take our technology, which is better than what others have. That's what they're afraid of.
Yeah, so and they are afraid of that. They're afraid we might start a war. Or just we're just not ready for deep space yet. We're not ready to be part of the galactic. Well, because if I understand correctly, every world that we're talking about, 2 million, 10 million, whatever it is, are all united planets. We're not.
Yeah, we're not a part of it.
Not. And what gets me is the Greys. When you listen to the Greys talk, or when you hear questions and you listen, they grew up as a united planet. There was never a division. And there was same thing with the reptilians. There was never a division in the world, even though there's an argument about how many tribes a reptile is, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. It's whatever argument you want to take. But they all started from one planet and then migrated outward. And as they migrated outward, they changed according to whatever planet they were living on. And I thought it was technology to change it, but it seems like it's a DNA thing. So they talk about these great domed libraries where you put your hand on this round ball and anything you think of comes up in front of you. It sounds fabulous and fantastic, but it still limits. So this is what our governments are after, stuff like that, or anyone who has connections to that. So at the beginning, they thought it was Greer. What's that, Michael? Carol Rosin's a friend of mine. Yeah, I've talked to her many times. I got in touch with Carol Rosin because she worked for Vernon von Braun, and he's a hero of mine. Even though he's an asshole, no good bastard who wanted to wipe the Brits off the face of the planet, he's still a hero of mine, because without him,
he also assisted in Operation Annihilate the Jews. I think he had something to do. I don't think.
He had a lot of bad stuff on him. I mean, he had a lot. I mean, most of them whitewashed.
All of them did. We quashed their military crime records and crimes. We quashed their crimes, so we
hit all of that stuff.
These men to do our space programs for us.
Yeah, they couldn't be here with what they had done.
We wouldn't have gotten the moon without them. That's at least not 1969.
Don, Vernon von Braun had nothing to do with America's nuclear bomb. No, sorry.
No.
Einstein technically didn't either. He laid out the groundwork for it, but
he was consulted, and when he found out what they were doing, he said, "No way."
Yeah, he got out of it. Yeah, he didn't. I know everybody thinks that, but what's his name? They just made a movie about him.
Oppenheimer.
Yeah, he's the one who's responsible for the nuclear weapons.
He's the father of nuclear medicine.
Look, if you go out and ask an American who created a bomb, most of them are going to tell you Einstein.
They'd be wrong.
Look, they just didn't get educated. Well, I'm a big goofball when it comes to space science and stuff like that. I can't help myself. I'm just a geek at heart. It's because there's so much to know and so much to learn, and so much history needs to be corrected. When we start talking about alien technologies and governments, these aliens have been going back, as far as I can tell, since man's been walking on the freaking planet. Okay, I'm about to go check on it. Well, we're getting ready to sign off anyway, because I got to go check and make sure my car is not getting flooded or my grinders aren't getting flooded. Can't be shorting nothing out. I don't want to have the damn people out here fixing stuff. Next week, we're going to have a guest with us. The week after that, we're going to pick this conversation up. We'll probably run this conversation for 2 or 3 weeks because there's just so much to cover. I really want to talk about the different space programs. I want to talk about the developments. how we got to certain places and why aliens were interested in our nuclear weapons and nuclear sites and why they shut stuff down and why we didn't learn from that.
Can we
No.
also touch on why they keep saying we're going to have disclosure, but they keep stringing it along?
Because they don't know. How can you disclose something you don't know what the hell it is?
If you don't know the whole story, how do you say, oh, by the way, here's what we know?
Yeah.
It's not
So
everything.
first off, ladies and gentlemen, before we go, the majority of senators and House representatives know nothing about extraterrestrials.
They haven't a clue.
Other than what they've heard on TV or if they've watched stuff like what we're doing tonight, thank you, Christy. They don't have a clue. They really don't. There are a handful of senators and a handful of reps that work on deep projects that may know some, but even they're compartmentalized. They only know so much because you can't trust somebody that's in Congress. You just can't. There's been too many leaks from Congress. Congress is like a freaking sieve the way it leaks these days. It used to not be like this, but it is bad these days. What's that, Michael? Term limitations. Ask me about that Friday. I got some stuff I want to talk about that on Friday. Supreme Court and the House and Rep. Yeah, I want to talk about that. We're going to be talking about that on Friday. Well, we got to talk about the debate and who won and who didn't and what we think about it and what was going to come out of it. And of course, we always do polls. And then we're going to talk about a few other things. Who's the sexiest man on the planet? That would be me, but we're going to let y'all decide. I'm just kidding. Yeah. For anybody starts writing to Leah. What? No, I didn't say she was the sexiest man on the planet. What are you? That was just ignorant. That was,
I probably have more testosterone.
No, my God, she's evil, by the way. No, she's part alien. She just ain't figured it out yet. It's we're all here for something. It's just what is it we're here for?
What am I
do you
here
think?
for?
You think we're all here just to waste space? Is that what it is? And eat up resources? And are you saying
Eat a
we're
Reese's?
like? Well, I could eat a Reese's. I'm saying resources, but are you saying we're like cows? We just walk around and we're food? Is that what you're saying? If you've been taken, then there's a reason why. Well, the main reason why you've been taken is because it's in your family line. But if they keep taking you, there's a reason why. Well, they
keep messing up.
No, they're not messing up. We're messing up. It's
I'm messing up.
So they like when you have children because they like to take your children and your grandchildren and your great grandchildren, all of them things. Actually, I'm gonna tell you a little secret, and then we're gonna go. For contactees, for known contactees who really understand what's going on, and they educate their children on this, those children have a way less stressful life than everybody else does. One, they know it's coming, they know how to look, and they know how to look for information, things that can help them. They also start learning how to use their psychic and telepathic abilities at a young age, which helps them out through life. There's a lot of benefits to being a contactee or an abductee. Well, there's a lot not. I mean, because there's a lot of horrible shit that goes on from age 12 to age 12.
I don't know. I think as a contactee, you might have a more beneficial overlook to the experience, whereas an abductee, some of them have very negative overlook.
Yes, that's true too, because they're abductees and they don't understand what's going on in their life. Real quick, so like England is like a what do you call it when you put something on the side to make sure something else? It's like a test area. But anyway, so if you go to England, the majority of cases you hear what I call alien abduction 101. They're usually pretty nasty, pretty horrific. There's not many really good contactee cases there. They're like the what do you call that? And then everybody else on the planet is just regular normal abductees and contactees. But for some reason, that particular planet, it's like a test group. It's a control group. And that's what they use them for, so that they can test them against everybody else. It's a controlled study. Don't ask me. There's things if I told y'all, they'd just come kill all y'all people. No, they would. Each one of y'all would die in some stupid accident.
We would know the whole story anyway.
Yeah, and the blender would get you. The car would run you over. The dog would bite you and give you some disease. If y'all think I'm playing, I'm not. There are things that they're not ready for it to be released yet. Oh, you mean me threatened? More times than I can count. Some of them pretty serious threats too. Well, because as I've been told by others, I can push the line pretty good. I can walk the line pretty close. There are just some things like alien agendas. They don't like when I'm talking about alien agendas. They really don't want it out in the general population. Shit, they threaten my wife, my kid, myself, my dogs, my family, my mom. They threaten everybody. And my favorite one was, he said, well, you drive a lot, Joe, and you go here, you go there. rig just run you over. Nobody even think twice about it. He's right. Nobody would think twice about it. Oh, everybody knows I like to go traveling and go places and go all kind of places.
They'd pull a Princess Diana on you.
Or like the guy said, maybe a barrel each in Florida or something. He said, there's just many ways to get rid of you without drawing suspicion.
Yeah.
And I looked up at him. I said, there's no ways to get rid of me without drawing some suspicion, dude. There's some people just not going to believe the bullshit. I said, but in the end, he's right. I mean, it's not enough to change anything. Claudia, we got to go. That's too big of a question to answer right now. But I don't know what the topic's going to be next week because I didn't ask Sean. Even though I listened and I forgot, though. We are on Rumble, and we are back on
Roku.
Yeah. So, Christopher, if you're on there, go look and see, because the purple one doesn't work. It's still got whatever. What is that? You're somewhere on Mars or some place.
Well, at one point, it was Afro Vibes or Afro.
So they're supposed to be taking that down and replacing that with the new one. So now you got to go wander all over till you find the place. Oh, no, I tried typing in the name of the station. I didn't get it. And then I typed in UP something, and it came up as a green thing. And I had to just check because so it's hard to explain. I can access it from my computer and change the videos and change stuff and move stuff. It's just where it's playing live should supposed to be where it's at, and it's somewhere else. No, they keep telling me they're going to move it back. I told them they got to the end of this month to straighten it out, or we're going to drop them and go with somebody else. He said, why? And actually our viewership is up, which is weird. I'd just like to know exactly where it is so I can show people. Well, I can put the link on the site or something. It's aggravating is what it is. Usually you can just type in UFOP and it comes right up.
I went to Roku's website and it came up HTTP error 401 unauthorized. Yeah. What?
See, that's what I'm saying. It's aggravating as shit. Well, where are you that you can see?
Why is Roku off? I mean, I don't understand that.
Send me a picture of where you at so I can at least put it up on a website. Yeah, I would appreciate it because I don't know. I know it's running because I can see the numbers. They sent me a new set of stats yesterday or Monday, and they're all up. So I know it's being seen, but I can't see it. See, I'm used to just going in and clicking and finding it and watching it because that's how I check out on shows and see how everybody's doing. And make sure nobody's got no big fat shit on the back of their.
Here, look at this.
Yes, it's really irritating. But yeah, send it over to me. I appreciate it. Thanks, man. We're gonna get out of here. You got what you're sending me, Jay.
I'll just show you real quick.
Okay, pop
this
it
is
up.
This is what came up. Oh, did I hit share?
No, we got Jay. Oh, I thought it was Leah that came. I was like, what the hell? Yeah, you kind of looked like what's her name right there, Sinead.
I clicked this. I clicked this.
I
clicked Roku.com on a Yahoo search, and this is what came up. Roku.com. From Yahoo.
Okay,
that's unbelievable. No wonder we're not on the air.
Okay, anyway, I got to because I got to move my car before it goes underwater. The boss.
Thank God your house is on stilts, huh?
Yeah, I know, but I got to go move it. I got to turn off my grinder because if the water gets deep in my yard, it'll make my pump run nonstop till it burns up. Okay. But anyway, y'all guys, thanks for the show. It's a great show. Hope everybody enjoyed it. As we get more information about it, I will post it wherever y'all can see it. To all my friends about Jason Wilson, he's gone, guys. He passed away Monday, so it's a sad thing. I'll be sad for a while. But check it out. I mean, I know a lot of people who listen to this particular show knows Jason because he's hung out with him for many, many years. And we've had some really serious debates about aliens and government. But he always liked to debate, yes. That's why we were good friends. But anyway, we got to go. On that note, we're going to close up. Don't forget to check out The Outer Realm with Michelle and Amelia. They're on right now. And let me know how y'all think. Ooh, listen, it's raining hard now. All right, let me get my butt moving. I will talk to y'all later, guys. Be good.